Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Carver School Committee meeting to order. It is December 10th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Would you all please join me for the pledge of? Here we go.
Yep.
All right, pledge allegiance to the flag of
The
the United States of America and to
and
the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right, we will go right into recognitions.
Yeah, I just want to take a second just to remind everybody this meeting is being held virtually in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. That we're using the Zoom webinar format. So in that format, we'll be able to call people up as panelists who are presenting this evening. And then if anybody is interested in making a comment during comments from the general public, they can put that in the chat. And then we will call on people in the order in which they presented themselves in the chat to be called on for public comment when we get to that point. And with that, we want to start this evening with the recognition of Julia Whalen. Julia is a 8th grade science teacher at the middle high school. And this year for her birthday, which was recently, she made a decision to forego birthday gifts and chose to make donations to Shane Gives Thanks Food Pantry. So I wanted to have her talk about that a little bit, that decision, and how much money she raised and what she was able to purchase and donate to Shane Gives Thanks. I do have a picture of Julia and her shopping, and it was just a tremendous, obviously just a personal sacrifice. She made a decision to do something to support the Carver Food Pantry, Shane Gives Thanks, and the Carver community, and the community just wanted to recognize her for that. And Julia, I don't know if you just want to tell us a little bit about why you made that decision and how it worked out.
Yeah, so my birthday obviously always falls in the same month as holidays, and I always kind of get like doubled up on presents and I don't know what to ask for. So this was actually my 5th year doing this. I, in college, decided, I'm an adult, I don't need that much stuff. So I started collecting donations for different charities. And I think the first year I did it, I was collecting donations for the Brockton Animal Shelter. And I've also done other food pantries, charities that help homeless people, things like that. And so this year I was like, I have been such a huge part of it already, even though I just started this year working in the school. So I want to give back to the community that I am so happy to be a part of now. So I chose Shane Gives Thanks, which I've donated like small donations to before, but I decided I wanted to do something really big. And luckily with COVID, I asked for like either physical donations, I could do a porch pickup, or if people preferred to just send me monetary donations, I was willing to go do the shopping myself to kind of limit people's exposures and things like that. And I ended up getting a huge outpouring of monetary donations. I got over $600. So I was able to go to Aldi and just buy a ton of stuff. And I was also able to get in touch with them and find out what they really needed before I went. So I was able to fulfill their wish list that they had and get tons of food with all of that money. So I was just so excited and so thankful for everybody who donated. I think people are just in the giving spirit this year. I think seeing the hardships that some people are going through has made a lot of us more aware of needing to give back and things like that. So it was a good experience and it was so great to work with them. They were able to come open up the food pantry on a Saturday, even though they're not usually open those days. And we made the drop and it was great.
That's terrific. It's very laudable of you. What do you have, 6 cots full there?
Yeah.
In the picture? Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
It's nice when people do nice things for others.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how much people were willing to give. It was so nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we
Anybody
just want to take a moment
comments?
to have the committee give Julia thanks for supporting our community.
Yes,
Certainly.
thank you so
Very good.
much. So many Carver families used that outreach, and that was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for welcoming me so nicely. I feel like I'm part of a family already. So
You are.
That's great to hear.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you, Julia. Julia, I just want to say nice to meet you. And when I saw that you did this, I just thought it was so amazing. So, welcome to Carver. Thank you so much for working with the Shane Gives Thanks Food Pantry. They are awesome. This is a wonderful thing that you did this year and have done for the past 5 years. So thank you so very much for caring so much enough to do that. So thank you.
yes, of course. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Whalen. That was very generous of you, and I like the little flare and with your leg in the picture. That was. I think I'm going to see you jumping up like this. That was great.
With the mask, I had to express my joy in a different way.
That was good. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So next, we're going to move on to comments from the general public. So, if anyone has a comment, you can go into the chat feature and put your name, your comment there. But I don't see any. There's no one there, right?
I do not see anybody in the chat requesting to comment.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to comments from the APC.
All right, I think Tom is going to speak for the APC this evening, so give me a second to promote him to a panelist. All right, Tom, you should be able to turn on your video and unmute yourself.
How's everybody doing tonight? Good evening.
Good evening, Tom.
I hope you all had got to enjoy a very different Thanksgiving this year. Everybody kind of talked to, I kind of got the same answer. It was a quiet Thanksgiving. I think at the last meeting, James put it very elegantly. Thanksgiving is usually family, football, and food. And I can say this is the first time in a long time I wasn't able to attend a Thanksgiving Day football game as a spectator or coach. So it was very different, but I really hope people got to enjoy at least a little time, even though it was not what we're used to. As we all know, these have been on President's time, stressful times since basically last March. However, I really want to thank the school committee and the district at the last meeting when you decided not to kind of discuss changing any models until the new year. I believe for the first time in a long time, our membership, had a moment to breathe and relax and not kind of worry about any more stressful things kind of given. So I just wanted to reach out and give you my gratitude for kind of taking that step and again, giving our members an opportunity to breathe and be able to focus on, their students, their families, and life. So that's kind of all I wanted to say tonight. So I wanted to put that out there to everyone.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Okay, we go on to student council update with Quentin Kittredge. Is Quentin here?
Yep, Quentin is here. I got to bring him into the meeting. Give me a second.
Geez, I should have found a Christmas themed hat to wear tonight. We're wearing all different hats every meeting.
All right, Quentin, welcome. You should be able to unmute yourself and turn your video on. There you go.
There you go,
Hi,
Jason.
everyone.
Hi, Quentin.
Hi, guys. First off, want to apologize. I'm doing this from my car because I'm at work, and it took like a half-hour break to be able to do this.
Quentin, you could have just.
That's great of you.
Quentin, you should have just said, "I'm doing this from my limo."
Yeah, that'll be the day. Yeah,
Yeah.
making subs isn't gonna get me a limo.
I know.
Happy holidays, everyone. I'm very happy to update you guys with everything that school's done for student council. First off, for old news, we want to thank all the teachers, students, and families in our community, sponsors for helping raise over $1,500 for the Make-A-Wish during October and November. We now have a banner displaying out front the school entrance. And if you drive into the school, you'll see it. It's right on your right with a bunch of the big donations that we got from a lot of Rob's barbershop and everything like that, who's donated to us for it. So that went really well.
Was that Rooney's barbershop?
And as I mentioned last month, as our school has begun our care packages for our troops fundraiser in partnership with the Helping Our Troops organization, the fundraiser began last week and continues through next week, next Friday, December 18th. So far, many of the students and teachers are coming together to gather supplies for like students that are in homerooms. A lot of the homeroom teachers have been asking their students to bring it in, bring in any items they had, like hygiene, non-perishable food, and other essentials, such as like batteries or playing cards. We ended up changing where we were going to put one of our boxes. Instead of adding it into the post office, we moved it to my work. So it's sitting out front in the lobby at Jersey Mike's in Plymouth. Personally, my manager and my boss was so excited to be able to have the box in there, and they're planning on having a big going to the store and buying a bunch of like about $60 to $100 worth of stuff to be able to put in the box so I can bring it back.
Very nice.
Yeah, and so also the homeroom teachers, since they've been working with everything, they're creating all their letters and stuff, and it's going past really well. We've already had 10 boxes be made by homerooms themselves. And once again, our goal is to hit 100. So I think we'll be able to do it this year with all the all the supplies that all the students are bringing in and teachers. The only thing we haven't been getting is like a lot of the donations at the front office, from any of the teachers. Any of the parents. So Mr. Tresca has sent out emails to parents to allow them just to know that there's like a donation if they want to donate. As well as, I also want to add that the school has done a great job decorating. If some of you guys have been in there, it's covered in lights, covered in inflatables. It's amazing. And I want to let you know the high schoolers, as well as the middle schoolers, all enjoyed walking through all the lights and all the decorations between the different teachers, trying to have a little competitions on whose is better. Everyone loves it. Thank you guys.
That's great.
Thanks, Quentin. Thanks,
All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming out of work and taking a break from work to join us this evening. We appreciate that.
Not a problem for me.
And happy
As
holidays.
long as you don't get in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
Does anybody else have anything for Quentin before he leaves?
I appreciate you coming and giving us the update, Quentin. I will say somebody had posted a video of the decorated hallways of the middle high school on one of the class pages, and the school looks beautiful. So I don't know, did student council help do any of that decoration, or is it all teachers and staff?
Student council did a little bit of decoration, but some of it we didn't know was going to happen. So like the blinking lights that you see in the middle school, or the inflatables from Mr. Oda, those were all teachers. But we've done a good amount of decorations.
That's great.
Awesome.
Just a couple of things that happened there. The teachers have done a little bit of a competition within each hallway of who could have the best kind of a theme of decorations for the holiday season. And then the
main
office,
atrium looks awesome.
well, and then right in the foyer in the atrium, they actually wanted to try to recreate Rockefeller Plaza, because sadly, one of the things that we've lost this year is traditionally our 8th grade students go to New York. Usually this upcoming weekend. Usually it's tomorrow. Usually it's the second Friday in December they go to New York for the day. And obviously that trip's not happening because of the current pandemic situation. So they wanted to try to recreate that foyer and make it look a little bit like Rockefeller Plaza and the tree. And they have the Radio City Music Hall show playing in the foyer. And obviously it's not the same as actually going to New York, but they wanted to create that theme a little bit.
That's awesome.
Love that.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, thanks, Quentin.
Thank you guys so
Quentin.
much. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Quentin. You
Happy
too.
holidays.
All righty, moving on. We go to approval of minutes for October 8th, 2020 open session. Do I have a motion to approve these minutes?
Motion to approve the October 8th open session minutes.
Okay, we hear a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments, corrections, concerns? No, not seeing none. All right, this is a roll call vote. Jen Pratt,
Jen Pratt, aye.
Jason Greenwood,
Jason Greenwood, aye.
Stephanie Clarity,
Stephanie Clarity, aye.
and Andy Cottarelli, aye. So 4-0 approved. Okay, on to communications.
Okay, no specific communications this evening, so we're going to move right into
Reports.
reports for the superintendent.
Okay.
So first, just some personnel updates. We've had some new hires. Colin Furla as a 70 bus driver, and Alexis Foco as an ESP at the elementary school. We have had a resignation, so we're sad to report that Brad Brothers, our Chief Operations and Finance Officer, has officially resigned his position, though Brad is here with us this evening. Brad's going to be with us through the end of January, and he's going to be beginning over as the Chief Finance Officer for the Plymouth Public Schools on February 1st. Really congratulations to Brad on that position. I'm excited for you. I appreciate all you've done for the school and the community since you came here. Really, towards the very beginning of my superintendency, I did an outstanding job, and you've been a great partner, and you're going to be missed. You have a few more meetings. This is the last meeting, so we won't go too far into tonight. But Brad has officially announced his resignation. We also have a couple retirements. So Paula Foley has officially announced that she is going to retire at the end of the school year, associate principal at the elementary school. Paula's been with the district for over this her 20th year as a teacher and administrator, and has been an outstanding employee for the Carver Public Schools and will be missed. And again, we still have several months of Paula, but she'll be retiring as of the end of the school year. And then also Kathy Hart. Kathy has worked for us as actually a substitute, a long-term substitute, and as an ESP for over 20 years. I believe her and I were talking the other day. I believe it's 23 years she's been with the school district. Most recently, she's been one of the original members of what was originally called our GAP program, our Graduation Assistance Program, and has been really the rock of that program in her time with us. Kathy is retiring actually as of February 2nd. So we're gonna miss Kathy as well.
Okay. Well, I'd like to say, thank you to our retirees for all the service to the town and to our students, Mrs. Foley and Mrs. Hart, and also to Brad. We'll miss you here, Brad, but I am also excited for you for your new hire and your new venture. Just one town away, so you won't be too far away. But yeah, you've been invaluable to us and since I've been on the committee, and I want to thank you for all your time. Would anybody else like to say anything, or you want to move on? Or?
I will. I was gonna wait till would you rather I wait until like reports from the school committee?
It's up to you.
Okay. Well, clearly, thank you to Mrs. Foley. Thank you to Mrs. Hart. Over 20 years plus of service is incredible. And I'm sure they will both be missed. I've known Brad for a long time. And it's been a great pleasure to work with him and to get to learn so many of the ins and outs of our district through his lens, and to have him be there with us to go through all of the tough budget meetings we've had to have over the years. It's going to be very strange going through all that with someone else. But I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for everything that you've done for us. And I, for one, I know that I will always hear your voice when it comes to budget talks. And that's a good thing, Brad. That's a compliment. So anyway, thank you.
All right.
Moving on to
Someone else? Okay.
oh no, sorry. Go ahead, Andy.
No. I was just I was just scrolling down the list here. All right, so moving on to item B.
All right, the I in kind at Carver Elementary School. So I've invited Tanya Dawson, Associate Principal at the elementary school, to join us as a panelist. And she's going to talk about a program that they've instituted there at the elementary school called the I in kind. And Tanya, just tell me when to.
I'm ready.
There you are.
So this year at Carver Elementary School, our theme is above all, be kind. And as a PBIS team, we came together and decided that wouldn't it be cool or neat to have kids recognized for being kind? So any staff member can nominate a student, and we actually have 2 teachers nominated in the slideshow presentation as well. When a student's nominated, they're interviewed by a PBIS team member, and we find out a little bit about them. It's like their favorite sport, food, color, favorite activities, season, and there's a few more. You can flip, Scott, if you want to go through some of them, you can, or like on the first one. Oh, so Ms. Burden has been a tremendous help getting this off the ground, and she was nominated first. And the sheet also goes home to the moms and dads or the guardians as well. And the plan is to line the hallways with all of the Meet Your Friend posters. So these are just the kids that have been nominated so far. And you might have seen them in Mrs. Maesis's newsletter that comes out bi-monthly. But this is all of them so far.
Great.
And when we get to the end, I just want to mention one more thing.
Like a little profile.
Right. Just so like, it's an opportunity for the kids to share their favorite things. It's also, all the posters, if you come into the school, are at eye level, except for the kindergartners. We're not quite that low, but it's just a way for the kids to, to read about one another.
That's great.
Yeah, I think it's super cute.
It is.
So the PBIS team is looking this school year for different opportunities to have kids demonstrate kindness throughout the year. And right there, thank you so much. So one of our activities so far has been the kindness elf. So the kindness elf has come to each and every classroom, and the kindness elf has a mission, and there's 8 different missions for the month of December. So this right here is an art project. So every child received a square, and they designed their own square, and then we are going to put them together. If you notice, we put some up on the hallways to make kind of like it's called creating artwork together, even though they're not creating it technically together, but we're piecing it all together like a quilt.
Okay.
And that's some more examples of the artwork. And another activity was for the students to write about how they light up the world. And then they get to take them home.
Nice.
Oh, we're also making cards for the Council on Aging.
Oh, very nice.
So that's just some of the things that we're up to at the elementary school.
Well, thank you very much. That's terrific.
Thank
Anybody have any comments for Ms. Dawson? Over here. I can't see the list. So.
I raised my hand, Andy. Yes.
Okay,
sorry.
Stephanie, sorry.
I'm sure you're shocked,
No,
right?
it's good.
I just want to say I saw this in the newsletter, and it's awesome. It's so sweet. The kids look so happy. I love that art project, how you're piecing them all together. So it's like, art together. It's awesome. And on a personal note, I'm super thankful that you guys are doing the cards for the Council on Aging. The seniors are going to be so excited. Like, we're so looking forward to getting those out to them. So thank you so much for all that you do, but thank you for presenting this tonight. This is great.
Oh, thank you.
Jen, I think Jen had her hand up too.
No, I agree with everything Stephanie says, so I don't need to add anything. Just, good job.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Miss. Yeah, thank you very much, Tony. Tony, that was great. Love seeing the artwork on the walls. All righty. So let me move on
Yep,
to item C, winter sports update.
Yep, just give me a second to promote Phyllis Bowie to a panelist. Hi, Phyllis, you should be able to unmute yourself and turn your video on. So what we would like to welcome Athletic Director Phyllis Bowie is going to talk, give us kind of an update on the winter season. You know, the Social League has decided to go forward with the winter season following the guidelines outlined by the EEA and the MIAA. And Phyllis is going to kind of just give us a general overview of what the plans are for the year for winter sports. So just give me a second to go to her presentation. All right, Phyllis, I think we should be all set. Slow, there we go.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. Just wanted to give a brief overview of our winter sports. As you know, we got through the fall. It was very successful. So we're very happy about that. So moving forward with the winter sports, we're offering, as you can see, boys basketball, girls basketball, gymnastics, and ice hockey. We have a start date of this coming Monday, December 14th. And we have our first games beginning January 8th. There have been obviously modifications in guidelines set by the state agencies and the MIAA, which can be found on the MIAA website. They give a very clear indication of what those modifications are. For boys basketball, we're offering 3 levels, varsity, junior varsity, and freshman. As of today, we have a number of students that have signed up with a total of 38 for each of those levels combined. Our schedule is obviously a little modified than what we normally have. We are playing in the league. We are not going outside of the league this winter due to obviously to COVID and the restrictions. So we will have 9 games, and we'll play each school in the league once. We also do have the option of playing non-leagues within the league. And although the MIAA is not sanctioning any kind of a tournament this year, we will have a South Shore League playoff tournament within the league, just as we did in the fall. And just as a safety precaution, the league has decided, and Carver Middle High School has decided as well, that we will not have any fans to begin the season. Our thought is to start the season on January 8th with no home fans. And then we will take a look after the first 2 weeks as a league and make sure that everything is going smoothly the way we would like it. And being, adhering to all the safety regulations that we have. For girls basketball, we're offering 2 levels. It's varsity and JV. Right now we have current signups of 18 players. It'll be the same as boys basketball. We'll play each school in the league once, which will give us 9 games. We'll have the option for non-league games. We'll have the end of the season playoff tournament within the league. And again, no fans to start the season. For gymnastics, we have currently 2 signed up, but we also have it's a co-op with Middleborough. So we do have Middleborough students that will be participating. I know the number for Carver will go up beyond 2. Meets will be held in person and virtually. We're going to do that both. And as of right now, we have only 5 gymnastic meets scheduled. We may have one more meet scheduled, depending on if we can bring in what we want to bring in for a home event. And then lastly, we have ice hockey. We only offer one level. It is varsity. It is a co-op with Wareham. Wareham is the host school. I should have mentioned, I'm sorry, that we are the host school for gymnastics with Middleborough. But for ice hockey, Wareham is the host school. Right now we have 10 games scheduled, and their league has also decided that no fans will be allowed in the arena, at least for the first couple of weeks, until we can all make sure that everything is going along safely. So that is our schedule for the winter. We're looking forward to it. We know that we have, you know, a few more concerns with it being indoor events. But, you know, we are lucky enough to have Phil Mader as our athletic trainer. He's affiliated with Brigham and Women's Hospital. He's a great asset to Carver Middle High School in the athletic department. So he is been working on modifications and COVID-19 protocols actually since April. So I truly feel, again, as in the fall, we're in really good hands as far as being able to get through the winter season.
And Phil, the other thing I'd like to add on is no locker rooms, correct?
Absolutely not.
So none of the teams will be accessing the locker rooms or
No.
locker rooms. Or...
No, we will have no locker rooms. And for basketball home events for boys and girls, we will actually be sharing within the league a map of our gym. And we will have designated areas for mass breaks, for the entrance, the exit, which will be totally, you know, exit from the building. I mean, enter through the building in the front door, exit through our gym. And spacing will be 6 feet apart with all players, coaches, the score table. We've been in there, we've been measuring, and we're really comfortable and confident that we'll be able to adhere to all of the guidelines and modifications that are asked of us. So feel very confident about that. I think we'll be absolutely in good shape to start the season.
Great. Thank you, Phyllis. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the winter sports program?
I'll just say thank you for all of your hard work and planning, to you and the physical trainers and all the other people. I think sports are really important for the kids. It's a great outlet for them, and especially in such a difficult year. I think a lot of the kids, you know, can use sports as an outlet to kind of, you know, a positive outlet to, you know, get out emotions or whatever else might be going on. And so I'm really happy to hear that we're still going to be able to have a sports program. It may be modified, it may be different. You know, maybe they can get some fun fake fans to put in the bleachers like they did at Fenway. I think
That's a great idea.
but I think that it's really good for the kids and for overall morale. So thank you for all your hard work in accomplishing this safely, and we hope that they have a good full season.
So I know not to put you on the spot on this, because I don't know if this is exactly solidified yet, but I know we're also working on the possibility of live streaming some of the events.
Yes, we are. I know for our hockey games, like I said, Wareham is the host school. I was on a hockey meeting last night, and their cable company will be live streaming, but they're also figuring a way that Carver parents as well will be able to watch the live stream. As far as our basketball and gymnastics, we are still working on finding a way to live stream. We do have a program that's through Huddle that we're able to record all of the games, and we are looking to find a way to be able to actually live stream it. So we're looking into a couple of options. We still have some time to figure that out, considering our first game's not until January 8th. So we're hoping to get that out to parents. And like I said, it's, we're really looking at the first 2 weeks of no fans. Throughout the season, I probably should say too, that we are not allowing away fans into the gym. When we start allowing fans into the gym, it will most likely just be 2 parents that are going to be allowed in per player of that particular team. So we're definitely not looking at any kind of a crowd for the winter season inside our gymnasium. So we're ready.
Okay.
We're as ready as can be. So I'd also like to thank Scott and Mike Schultz as well, because this is definitely, we've had several meetings. This is definitely not an individual decision on what's going on with winter sports, but definitely a collective decision and discussions that we've had. So I do appreciate, as always, their support.
All right, thank you very much, Phyllis. Does anybody else have anything for Phyllis from the sports program? Okay, not seeing anyone. Okay, we're moving on. Thank you very much, Phyllis. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you all. Thank you very much.
All right, K through 12 testing.
Just one more second. Okay, actually both the federal and state government have established a program that will make rapid COVID-19 tests available to schools. We registered and were accepted to phase 1 of test distribution. The test is a rapid test that can only be given to students and/or faculty and staff who are symptomatic, but we'll get results within 15 minutes. Our plan is to have the test administered by the school nurses and at the discretion of the school nurses, with obviously the written consent of the students, staff, and faculty who participate. We were actually notified this week that we'll be receiving 400 tests, and we should have them by next week. And if not by next week, definitely by the time we return from the holiday break on January 4th. I want to talk a little about the consent process for the testing. Obviously, no one is going to be required to take the test. This is certainly, it's just an option. It's another tool that we can use in trying to combat the pandemic. And the consent process is actually going to be online. So the problem is the state has not opened up the online portal as of yet. Again, hopefully the online portal will be open prior to us receiving the tests. So hopefully that's all going to happen within the next week. I've actually already put a letter together to send out to the community that explains the testing, how we arrived at it, the process we had to go through, because we actually had to go through a process to be accepted for the testing. We had to ensure that we had adequate PPE on hand. We had to ensure that the nurses were going to be appropriately trained in administering the tests. We had to work in conjunction with the school physician, Dr. Bornstein. We had to apply officially with his support. So there's several steps the district had to go through in terms of actually being accepted into the program. And we've done all those steps. But hopefully the online consent portal will be open next week. And what would happen is in that letter that I send out to this community explaining the testing, I'll also have the link to the portal. And what will happen is parents can just go right onto the link and register and sign consent. Now, I want to be very clear that that's what we're going to encourage people to do. We're going to encourage them to go and do the consent prior to testing. But I want to be very clear that no one's going to be tested without a parent being contacted. So even if you as a parent, signed on to the consent in a week or two, and then all of a sudden we get into February and your student happens to be symptomatic in school, and there's a decision to test, that decision would be made in coordination with the parents. We talked to the parents before that happened. I want to be clear that parents don't have to worry that they, sign a consent in December that their student would get tested in February without their knowledge. Absolutely not. So there'll be a lot of communication in terms of the testing process. But procedurally, it would obviously help if the consent was done in advance. There is also a paper-based consent that can be done at the time of testing. So we're going to have that available to parents as well. So if a parent decides, you know what, when this letter comes out and I go onto the link and I don't want to consent to testing, they can certainly do that. But then a situation arises where they change their mind, or they want their son or daughter or student to be tested, they could certainly do a paper consent on that day that they were going to be tested. And Stephanie, I see that you raised your hand. I just want to make one more point, and then I'll call on you to ask your question. The only other point that I want to make is that this testing is being tracked by the state through a project. It's called through a website. There's a website called Project Beacon. So as part of consenting for testing, parents are also consenting to their information being sent to the state about the test results. But I will say the information that's being shared with the state in this Project Beacon website or database is no different than people would submit for any test they took in any location. The reality is the state is tracking all testing that's going on. But I wanted parents to be aware that, their basic demographic information would go into this database as part of the consent process and as part of the testing process. Stephanie.
Scott, she got kicked out, so I don't think she can do anything anymore.
Okay.
She's a panelist. She's not a panelist, so
Okay, let's go
that's why
back
she's
to
able to raise her
panels.
hand.
So give me a second to do that. I don't see her as an attendee either. Maybe she got totally kicked out. Oops, come back in.
She is.
All right, Stephanie, back in.
I'm here. Thank you. I couldn't chat to let you know, so I didn't want to say anything, but I'm like, oh, I'll raise my hand and maybe he'll notice when I finish.
Yeah.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
We
No,
thought you
no,
didn't
not a
get
problem.
enough quarters in the computer, Stephanie. Yeah.
So in terms of the testing program, as I said, we're going to have 400 tests hopefully within the next week. And if the online portal for consent isn't available yet, we'll start with paper-based consent. But those will be two options that will be available to parents. And we've had some situations that have come up in the last couple of weeks where we really feel like the testing would have been beneficial for us. I'll give some generic situations. We had a family that was actually waiting a long time for a PCR test result. They went and got tested, and right after around that Thanksgiving time, some people were getting test results in a day or two. Some people were getting it 7 or 8 days later. And it actually probably would have been really helpful if we had the ability to test them and do the rapid test and get a result in 15 minutes. We've had some other situations where families have had exhibiting some concern about availability of testing, and obviously this test will be available. It's going to be there, and as I've said, we get the result in 15 minutes. What they've said in terms of the rapid test is that, in general, again, I'm no way claiming to be an expert in this topic, so I'm just relaying the information that's given to me by DPH and by DESE, is that that the rapid test, if it's positive, it's positive. You don't necessarily get a false positive. That sometimes there are in the rapid test, there's not enough of the virus present yet. And sometimes you get maybe not a false negative, there just isn't enough there to read it. So they do say sometimes if you get a negative with the rapid, that they do recommend you still go and get a PCR test. And so as part of our process, if someone took the rapid test in school, had a negative result but was really symptomatic, we would still encourage them to work with their physician, make a decision if they needed to get another test, to go get a PCR. But if the test came back positive, we could certainly start putting in the protocols we put in place for a positive test, and so could the family, in terms of isolation, identifying close contacts, quarantining, all of those things. And so, as we've gotten closer to the testing window, I just wanted to, I guess, emphasize that the nursing staff has said to me, hey, this is a situation where I think that testing will be really valuable for us. And that's come up a couple times. So the way I look at it, as I said earlier, it's just another tool in our tool belt in terms of being able to fight the pandemic by having this testing available. Certainly no one is required to do it. If the nurses recommend it and talk to a family and the family doesn't want to participate, that is absolutely fine.
Right.
So if anybody has any questions about testing.
Okay, Jen?
Thank you. So I just wanted to know how or if protocols will change given that we have these testings. Because I think current protocols, if a child presents symptomatic, they're put into sort of like that quarantine isolation room until they're picked up. If a decision is made to test and their test comes up negative, like, are they still to be dismissed? Obviously, if they're positive, then they're definitely going to
Yeah. So if the
school,
test,
but like, so I guess changing protocols.
so actually not. So even if the test comes back negative, the recommendation, if they're symptomatic, is for them to still be dismissed, and because we're asking anybody who's symptomatic to stay home. So we would still be asking that student to go home even with a negative test result and stay home for at least 24 hours until they were no longer symptomatic. And then we'd also be advising that, as we said, they're acknowledging that this rapid test, though I think the data from the test says it's 98% accurate, which is pretty high percentage. They still acknowledge that if it's early on, there may not be enough virus present to have a positive. So that's why they're saying you should still go home, you should still consult your physician, you should still consider getting a PCR test, and really work with your doctor in terms of making that next decision. So from our mind, it's not necessarily changing any protocols in that specific situation. And obviously the testing is going to take place in the COVID isolation rooms. The nurses have the appropriate PPE. They'll be wearing their N95s, doing all that sort of stuff, and when administering the test. And it is a nasal swab, but it's not the full insert nasal swab. I think it's just the rim nasal swab. I think Jason had raised his hand too.
All right. Yep. Jason?
Hi. Logistically, is this for only students and staff who are in school on that day, or like would a distance learner who might be symptomatic, would they have the opportunity to come in, or is it just for kids in school at that time if they're symptomatic?
So I think we want to work with families on that. I'm going to leave that to the discretion of the nurses to make that decision, to talk to families and to work to them. So we're not saying that, no, we wouldn't have people come in and test. Obviously the goal is we don't want to be bringing people who are positive into the school building.
Right.
Certainly those people who are already present in the building can certainly do it. But I gave that example of a family that was waiting a long time for testing. So we did have a discussion of almost, the nurses said they'd be willing to do almost like a drive-up situation where the family could drive up, they could test, drive home, and then notify them of the results. So we are open to the concept of having people come into the building to be tested, but that would go through the nurses, through discussions with the nurses. Our policy or procedure wouldn't be, hey, if you need a test, come to the school and get tested.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It does. And then also, is there a time frame on this where it like we have 400 tests until blank, or we have to use those tests by a certain amount of time, or we might be, if we use them up by a certain time frame, we might be able to get more?
So we will be able to get more. They're calling this our first order. So within our first order, we will receive 400 tests, and then we could do subsequent orders if necessary. I don't know the answer, honestly, on life of the tests.
Okay.
you ought to-
I didn't know if it was like a grant where it's like we had to like satisfy something by a certain amount of time.
No. So there's no, and I think actually that's a great point in terms for the community. I want the community to know there's no pressure from the state for us to be testing. So it's not like they say, okay, we're giving you these tests. Make sure you test 200 people in the next 2 months or whatever.
Right.
There's no pressure that way.
Anybody else? Okay, no, I think this is a great tool for us. I think we're lucky to be in the program. Okay, well, thank you, Scott, for that update. Look forward to seeing more on that.
Yeah, but hopefully sometime definitely before the holiday break, parents will be getting the letter explaining the program and the consent process, and hopefully the online portal will be open and available at that time. If it isn't, then I'll just send it out and talk about the paper consent and how we'll use the paper consent.
And just for clarity's sake, this is just for school personnel and students, correct?
Right, this is not community testing.
Not for the community, not the community-wide.
Correct.
All right, thank you very much for that. Okay, we're going to move on to item E, the bi-weekly metrics.
Okay, so the weekly metrics report came out a little bit late I think it came out closer to 5:30 today. So I only got to look at this quickly. But like last time, Andy, we'll kind of look at them one at a time.
Yeah, that's fine. I like that better.
Take any questions or discussion. So first, for Carver, we've had our current active case count is 51 in the Carver community, and we've had 57 positive tests in the last 14 days. And obviously, we didn't have a December 3rd meeting, so December 3rd, we also had, at that time, 28 as a case count and total positive tests of 31. So obviously, and Carver became a red community this evening with a positivity percentage of 6.85% and over 10 positive tests for a community of 10,000. So obviously, the highest numbers we've seen in Carver. I don't think that's really a surprise to anyone. I think people know that over the last few weeks, there's been a real rise in cases within the Carver community, and this just supports that. And we'll just quickly look at the surrounding communities, and it's a similar theme. Most communities are reporting their highest active case count and their highest total positive tests over the last 14 days, and their highest rate of positivity. So Kingston's in the same position. Middleborough, same thing, became red. Positivity percentage was over 7% with 157 active cases. Plimpton's still doing well. So Plimpton does not have its highest number of cases and actually has a little bit lower positivity. So Plimpton's the one community in the surrounding area that is, obviously a lot more than they had in September, but has not seen the same growth that the other surrounding communities have. Plymouth, an active case count of 244 and 269 positive tests in the last 2 weeks. Also became a red community. Rochester became a red community with a percentage of positivity of over 8%. And Wareham became red last week actually with an active case count of 112 and a total positivity of a total positive test of 128 in the past 2 weeks with a over 7% positivity rate. So obviously, there's a clear indication here that the numbers are on the rise. And I guess I'll bring it back to the Carver section for any questions about just the general overview of the numbers. And I guess it makes sense at this point to talk about what our numbers have been in school, because obviously people have seen my emails, my notifications, so our numbers have been up over the last 2 weeks. So since we've returned from Thanksgiving, we have had 6 positive cases, 3 students and 3 staff. We've had 2 presumptive positives, which both of those presumptive positives actually ended up testing negative, so they never officially got a positive test result. 1 student and 1 staff member. And when we get into attendance, we'll see how that affected us in terms of quarantines and close contacts, and I want to talk a little bit more about that when we get into that slide. But I'll mention it here, but then I'll mention it again there because I like to repeat myself sometimes, is that in these cases, there really isn't there's real no evidence of community spread. So one of the things they ask us to look at is, are these cases related and connected to each other? And most of these cases are indicative of household spread. So a member of the household was positive, and then either the students or the staff became positive. Or a member of the household was a close contact. And so, yes, we've had a lot more positive cases in the last 2 weeks, almost as many positive cases in the school community in the last 2 weeks that we've had throughout the fall. I think prior to Thanksgiving, we had a total of either 9 or 10 overall, and then we've had 6 in the last 2 weeks. But looking at the overall cases, there's no evidence of a student became positive, went into a classroom, and 4 kids in that classroom became positive. Or a staff member became positive, and then, in the building, 2 or 3 staff members that they were connected to became positive. And we just haven't seen any of that community spread, and there's no evidence of that. So we've had 6 cases, but they've either been connected by household or just totally unrelated to each other. So I wanted to give the community kind of that background.
All right, thank you, Scott. Does anybody have any comments or questions on this portion of the metrics? Jen?
So I just wanted to ask for clarification on something because a lot of parents have been expressing concern that, when they get the email, oh, another student was identified as testing positive, but they have no close contacts. I don't think that people are understanding what the basis is of close contacts. So I just thought maybe it might be nice to just quickly.
I was going to go through that, so I can do that now. I was going to do that when we talked about attendance, but we can do that now. And the other thing is, I'm going to send an email to the community tomorrow to talk about this. No one's expressed a specific concern to me, but I've heard that concern out there. And ultimately, first of all, the definition of close contact is anybody who is within 6 feet of a positive person, student, staff, anybody who's positive, for more than 15 minutes. And it's not 15 consecutive minutes, it's 15 cumulative minutes during the school day. The reality is, so looking at even if we just look at our most recent cases, so I listed 8 here. 6 were positive cases, 2 were presumptive positives, where ended up being negative because they never tested positive, where we viewed people as positive and identified close contacts. In 6 of those situations, those students or staff members were not in school for 48 hours prior to becoming symptomatic or being tested. So they weren't there. And why weren't they there? They weren't there because we're following the guidance and the hybrid model works. So they either weren't there because it was their off cohort days, or they weren't there because they had been identified as a close contact because someone in their household was positive, and so they weren't in school. And to be a close contact, you have to be within 6 feet of someone for 15 minutes within 48 hours of them either being symptomatic or, if they're asymptomatic, of them testing positive. And the reality is, it's worked out for us from the standpoint of close contacts that most of our people who get a positive test result have either been out of school because they're a close contact, so they haven't been there for 48 hours for when they felt symptomatic or tested positive, or they, because of the cohort, because of the AB, because of the hybrid model, if it was a student, they were last in school Tuesday, they were home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, started to feel sick on Saturday, stayed home, got tested positive, but they haven't been in school since the Tuesday before because of the hybrid model. So that's why we don't have close contacts. We don't have close contacts because the system is working. We're following the guidance. The hybrid model is working. Now, there might be a lot of discussion about the hybrid model in terms of education, and we've had a lot of those discussions as a committee. But in terms of health and safety and in terms of close contacts, the hybrid model is definitely working for the school district. And that's why when I send out the email saying this student, this staff member is tested positive, but there's no identified close contacts in the school community, it's most likely because that person has not been in school. And I do put in the email the last day they were in school. So the three information I always put is the last time they were in school, what building they were in, and if they have any close contacts. Now we did have a situation where 2 of those 8 scenarios, there were close contacts. And we did have a couple elementary cohorts that were identified as close contacts and had a quarantine following the guidance. And we're going to talk about the quarantine guidance a little bit more later on. So I don't know if that answered your question, Jen, but my goal is to, I'm going to kind of send that in an email, maybe a little more succinct tomorrow to the whole community, just to remind people that the hybrid model is working, the guidance is working for us, and that's why we've had such a limited number of close contacts with these positive cases.
All right. Anybody else have a comment on this portion? Scroll down here. Seeing none. Okay, Scott, this just, isn't it curious that we turn into a red community exactly 2 weeks from Thanksgiving? 2 weeks ago tonight was Thanksgiving. I'm glad to hear there's no, spread, community spread with that, but still, it's an interesting fact. All right.
All right, so, obviously the report is lengthy and has really what we just looked at because the data we pulled out of the report. But there's a couple of things we looked at that we've been looking at each meeting. One is just kind of the map, which they don't have the map they used to have. But I think there's still the useful map in here in terms of percentage of positivity, which is, oh, I went a little too far. Maybe I'll find it just right. There it is. So this is the state of Massachusetts percentage of positivity. The darker blues having the higher percentage of positivity, and the lighter shades having the lower level of a percentage of positivity. Carver was over 5%. You can see that this area kind of on the south coast, more than the south shore, has the darker blues. So we're kind of on the edge of those darker blues down here in the south coast region, as well kind of on the north shore, there's some darker blues. The other thing you see in this data, and not specifically related to Carver, there has been a little bit of a shift to the west. So you're seeing some areas around Springfield, around Westfield, around the central part of the state, where there has been an increase in cases out in Western Mass as well. The other piece we looked at in this each couple weeks has been just the ages of positive tests. Like I said, there's a lot of data in here. Yeah, but cases by age group over the last 2 weeks, this throughout the state. So the average age of a positive test is 39. The highest category is between the ages of 20 and 29. Second highest category, 30 to 39, and third highest category is 0 to 19. So there's definitely a sense that under 39 is where there's been a lot of positive tests, and that's been the trend over the last couple of weeks, really over the last couple of months with kind of the second wave or second surge. That's where the positive tests have been. Though the hospitalizations haven't matched that per se. Your hospitalizations are definitely still with your older population.
Right.
So the average age of hospitalization is 69. And if you look at the hospitalizations, there have been a couple, there's been 8 for those under the age of 20. But if you look out of the number of positive cases, over 8,000, there's been 8 hospitalizations for that age group. And obviously we don't want to see anybody be hospitalized at any age, and hospitalizations aren't good, but there hasn't been the same increase in hospitalizations for the younger population that has been testing positive.
And I wonder, Scott, how many people were hospitalized for something else and they found they had COVID at the same time.
That I can't speak to.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know they don't have that in the graph. I
Um,
think it's a possibility.
Yeah. And not that we want to look at this, but also they also do publish the death rate. And, obviously the deaths are still happening amongst the oldest population. The average age of death over the last 2 weeks is 82. There has not been any deaths of a school-age child over the last 2 weeks, and only one for under the age of 30. Again,
this is statewide, right?
This is statewide data, yeah.
Mm.
So that's the information we've kind of been looking at this report. So I don't know if there's any thoughts or questions here.
Let me look down. I'm not seeing any.
Okay.
Okay, guess we're good to go on. Thank you, Scott, for that portion.
So I make this a little bigger. This is our attendance tracker. There we go. So here's our last 2 weeks in attendance. And so obviously you can see our quarantine numbers were really up. We reached a high level of quarantine last Thursday and Friday. We had 51 students on Thursday and 50 students on Friday who were quarantined. Some of those quarantines were directly related to our positive cases. As we said, there were students identified as close contacts and were quarantining in the elementary school. We had 2 cohorts, 2A cohorts that were quarantining that represented about 20 students. So on the other side of that, we did have 30 students who were quarantining because they were close contacts outside of school within their own lives. Those numbers have come down a little bit this week. But really, they've come down because our students who are quarantining because of our positive cases returned back to school. So we're still seeing, 25 to 30 kids quarantining because they're close contacts to some of those, 57 positive cases and 51 active cases within the Carver community. And then same on the staff side, we have had some staff who've had to quarantine. And mostly those have been related to contacts outside of school. So attendance has been tough a little bit in terms of staff attendance. You always get nervous when, last week we had 10, 11 staff members quarantined. And that's a large percentage of our staff for us to have to cover. And I know there's been some school districts that have faced some real challenges there and have been forced to, there's been a couple districts that have been forced to go to remote for a week or go remote for a small period of time, almost solely based upon the number of staff who are out as quarantined. We haven't been in that position yet or really close to that position, but it is difficult for us to cover 10, 11 staff members. And especially, those are the people who are just quarantined. There might be other staff members on those days who are feeling ill and are staying home. They're not represented in these numbers. Well, the one thing I wanted to do when we talked about this was I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to our staff, because everyone's been great. The administrators, the teachers, the ESPs. I think we've all taken the approach of when we come in the morning, we might be asked or might be requested to cover somewhere, and people have been readily willing to do that and giving up their own time to cover other classes. And that really has helped us get through when we've had these high level number of quarantine. And the other thing I want to commend the staff for is their attendance has been, staff attendance has really been outstanding. So on a day that we have 11 people out quarantined on the staff side, unless there's someone who's really sick, everybody else is at work. So the staff attendance has really been great, and the staff has been very supportive in terms of making sure that we can cover everything on a daily basis when we face these numbers. And obviously these last 2 weeks have put a little bit of a pressure test on us because these are the highest numbers we've faced so far this year. in terms of quarantining and those types of things.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Scott about the attendance tracking? All right, no, okay.
The last one, the COVID dashboard, there's not a lot of new, we've covered all the information here, except I just wanted to point out, we actually added a section last week because we did actually have a district-wide staff person who tested positive. And so we said, it makes sense to maybe identify that. Is we determined there are 36 employees who don't report directly to a building. With central office staff, the bus drivers don't report directly to one of the school buildings. Most of our staff, the majority of our staff has a direct report where they either go to the elementary school as their primary building or they go to the middle high school as their primary building. And that's how we've been identifying people in terms of, this dashboard. But then we obviously realized that we did have a district-wide personnel who doesn't report to a building, test positive. And we said we need to represent that to the community because we don't want to put it, if that person hasn't been in a building, we don't want to put them as a positive in a building. So we added this additional section of additional district staff to the COVID dashboard to more, fairly represent where our positive cases are, where people might be in quarantine.
All right. Anybody have anything? Jen Pratt, go ahead, Jen.
I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place to ask this, but I was wondering, so I was perusing the website the other day and looking at this COVID dashboard, and I was wondering if there's somewhere near here, because I couldn't easily find it, two things. One, sort of like a frequently asked questions, and I think we actually received an email where someone suggested maybe a flow chart of, something that just puts it in black and white and really simplifies it for people. Like, my child has, a runny nose. Should they go to school? Or someone in my family is being tested for COVID. Can they go to school? Yes or no type thing. And really just put in that black and white. But also, so I don't know if maybe from here, there would be a link to.
Can I respond to the first part?
Yep.
There is a section on the website that lists all the guidance protocols, but it's probably too overwhelming for people. There's a million of them. Everything's there. Everything you'd want to find is there, but it's probably not. There is actually a frequently asked questions document there. It is in there, and it's on the website. It's like COVID. It's like COVID. The title of it is COVID protocols. Maybe it needs a different title, but it has everything. The other thing I'll say is if people have questions, if they don't know what to do, I'm all for maybe, because I don't know if I can create a flow chart for every specific situation, because it is sometimes varies depending on what people have to say to us. I'm not opposed to that. I can look at that. But I want to emphasize that people can email the school nurse or the principal of their buildings, especially on weekends. And I hate to say that, but basically most weekends I've spent time managing COVID situations. And the building administrators have been spending time managing COVID situations. And I know there's been a couple parents who have expressed frustration because, especially on a weekend, they felt like they didn't know where to go or what to do. So I'm saying on a weekend, it's okay. On the weekend, you can email me directly. You can email your building principal. You can email me. You can email the school nurses. They're looking at those emails. They're going to be responding to people. And not saying I don't want to put something on the website for someone to look at as a quick reference, but it might be even more direct to just send us an email. We're gonna respond and get back to you, even on the weekend.
That actually was the second part of my question, was going to be, in addition to maybe like a summarized or more clean cut, frequently asked questions, quick access to information type thing, was that, is there some kind of hotline or, email thing where, nights and weekends, it's not standard school hours and I have a question, I don't know if I can send my child to school tomorrow, I'm trying to plan, is there a resource?
Email and maybe I'll put this in this email I'm going to send to everybody tomorrow too. Email the principals, email myself, email the school nurses. People are responding to that stuff. 24 hours. Not that I want to make them respond to things 24 hours a day, but it's just become the reality of what it is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't want people having to work nights and weekends either. But yeah, the reality is that somebody somewhere right now is probably debating on whether they should send their child to school tomorrow. And
Yeah, and then the other message I would send is, this sounds crazy, but if you have to make a choice, stay home and call in the morning. You know, ultimately default to stay home, and then call in the morning and talk to the nurse, talk to the administrator, and do that. And I will say this, I don't know if this is helpful or not, and I don't mean to be don't email your teachers. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful. I want to protect the teachers a little bit from that. And ultimately, it's the administration and the nurses are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. They're answering these questions all the time. And the teachers, most likely, if you email your kid's teacher, they're going to email the nurse or the principal and say, hey, Jen Pratt reached out to me. I'm not exactly sure what to give her for information. So this would be a situation, normally we say, hey, if you have a concern, talk to your kid's teacher. In this situation, my recommendation would be not to email the teachers on COVID-related situations, but the nurses and the administration.
All right. Does anybody else have anything on this topic?
So Jen, we'll work on putting a frequently asked questions document together, and I will put an email. I will put in my email tomorrow that people can contact me. You can contact me. If they have a specific question about any situation, I'm responding to these situations at all times. And quite honestly, a lot of our situations have been on weekends. So I've been doing this a lot of weekends anyhow.
Scott, the idea of a frequently asked questions link, like that might answer a lot of the questions, might, maybe have people email you after they look through that, or maybe they can find the answer through that.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you think most of the answers are there?
Right. There are the answers are all out there, but it may not be clear enough.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to get the information for the people, obviously, but I trust you will do that. But if a link works, great. If it doesn't, then I applaud your effort to want to field all the questions, and the administration.
The administrators aren't loving me right now for saying that, but I say that because it's the reality anyhow. That's what's been happening. So we have been fielding questions on weekends. We have been managing the situations on weekends. And then, as I said, you can also always default to stay home and call in the morning. Right. And maybe the answer is come in, and if you can, bring your kid into school that day if the answer is coming to school.
Okay.
But we'd rather always take the safer approach.
Yeah, I think the information's all there, but I think it's been disseminated in a lot of, it's embedded in different documents. Some of it's in different places. I know, like, if you go to the carver.org and you put in COVID, the dashboard comes up, but then there's no links to the protocols or guidance from the dashboard. And then there's, the addendum in the handbook, there's the athletics. So I think, maybe, having something linked, because I think most people are going to the dashboard now. And so having something there that is maybe a little bit more concise might just be helpful, because I think, it can be overwhelming, even for those of us who feel like we know it.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everyone. So moving on, what's the
next is some COVID guidance updates, including talking about having students wear masks in grades K and 1.
Okay.
So we good?
We are good.
All right. So we've made a couple adjustments to guidance that we've been following within the schools. There's 3 things I'm going to talk about specifically tonight. One is the movement of 6th and 7th grade students. One is students wearing masks in grades K and 1. And then the third, I said 1, so 1, 2, and then number 3 is I want to talk about the CDC and the Mass Department of Public Health have actually updated their guidance in regards to quarantining. And I just want to give the committee an update on that and talk about what DESE's done with that information so far and what the school district's doing with it. And going back to the previous discussion, there is a reality of some of this guidance has been changing on a regular basis, specifically the close contact guidance and the quarantining guidance. That's changed a lot in the last month. So it changed about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we talked about it in our last meeting, when the DESE implemented that change, and then it just changed again last week, which DESE has not taken on that change yet and is staying with the old protocols. But I'll kind of hit on those 3 things. So we'll talk about 6th and 7th graders moving, masks in K1, and the new DPH CDC guidance on close contacts and quarantining. So first one, 6th and 7th graders moving. So this actually began this past Monday, that students in 6th and 7th grade would transition between their classes. This came as a result of the committee I had set up, the review of the 3 educational models that I established in both the elementary school and the middle high school. The committee started making recommendations on what we might change in all 3 of our models: full remote, hybrid, and then we haven't done full in person yet. And we began when we started talking about the hybrid model, there was really a strong recommendation from the group to begin to allow 6th and 7th grade students to move classrooms from their core courses. The recommendation was really kind of based on some key factors: equal access to technology and classroom space. So for example, all the math classrooms have a very specific setup in terms of some of the software and curriculum we use in math, with a touch screen in all the math classrooms. The science classrooms were designed for labs. They were designed as lab spaces. Non-science classrooms were not designed that way. So that was an impact for people. So there's an equity piece when the teachers are moving to classrooms and don't have access to the technology or the space that they would have that's designed for their classroom. There was also a sense that there was a little bit of a loss of instructional time with the teachers moving. It provides more movement breaks for the students during the day. Really currently they're in the class. Before this, they were in their same classroom for 4 periods of the day. I do want to point out that the students were already transitioning 3 times a day. So they were transitioning to their arts classes. They were transitioning to lunch. So it wasn't like the students never left their classrooms. Ultimately, we've established effective processes for moving students about the building in grades 8 through 12, and we felt like we could implement those same processes for 6 and 7. I do want to note that they are staying together as a cohort, so it's not just a mass movement of all 6th and 7th graders. So, Mr. Fees' classroom is leaving Mr. Fees' classroom together and moving together to the next classroom, and they're staggering it. So it's not that all now 6th and 7th graders are released to the hallway at the same time. So there is some control in terms of that movement. We've implemented it this week. It's been actually very effective. Got a lot of positive feedback from both students and staff. So we feel like this has gone well, and we feel like this is a positive change that we implemented that I just wanted to make the committee aware of. So any questions about 6th and 7th graders moving before I go on to masks in K and 1?
Anyone? Okay, no.
So we also plan on, we'd like to require all students in grades K and 1 to begin wearing masks. And we'd like to implement this next Monday, December 14th. As a reminder, we already do require masks for all students in grades 2 through 12. This may be a bit of an anomaly, but we've had 4 positive students in the elementary school, and they've all been in the 1st grade. And I do think that that's created some anxiety among staff, saying that's where our positive cases have been, and that's where students aren't wearing masks. And then maybe it would be a safer environment for staff, for the students, if students were wearing their masks throughout the day. It is also in line with what is now the state guidance. The state guidance in all other public buildings. Now, DESE did not adopt this, but said that school districts certainly can. And actually, DESE has kind of recommended it now, but it's not official. It's still only a requirement 2 through 12. But the statewide guidance is that in all public buildings, students 5 and up have to wear masks. The other piece of it is, I think in August, there was a lot of concern about masks and kids wearing masks, and could they tolerate it, and how would they respond, and how would staff respond? And really, masks have been a non-issue really in the buildings. The kids wear their masks. They don't really give anybody a hard time about wearing their masks. It hasn't been problematic. It's really been, in the grand scheme of everything, it's been a very minor concern. And the kids have responded well to wearing their masks. The K and 1 already wear their masks in transition. They wear them when they get off the bus. They wear them when they move about the building. They all have their masks. You know, obviously they're still 5 and 6 years old, and the teachers are going to work with them. You know, are they going to have their masks on every second of the day? Probably not. They're going to still have mask breaks. They're certainly going to have mask breaks. But the staff is really requesting, and the administration is supporting, asking K and 1 students to wear their masks on a more regular basis. And so we would like to do that beginning this upcoming Monday. We wanted to make the community aware of that prior to that being fully implemented. So any questions on K and 1 wearing masks?
Yeah.
So I actually had a comment about the 6th and 7th grade, but I didn't get my hand up in time either. So, but I guess it's kind of related. I understand the reasoning behind the 6th and 7th grade changing classrooms and different technology. You know, I think it's, you know, good to allow the kids movement, but at the same time, it almost feels like, you know, keeping them in the same classroom is a more conservative approach. Having K and 1 wear masks is also a more conservative approach. While we did have 4 positive students, there was also no spread. So even though those students may have been positive, and we had to quarantine a classroom, like there was no, nobody else got sick as a result. So it just seems contradictory that we're kind of like loosening the reins in 6th and 7th grade, but then tightening them. And so I just think, I know I have heard some community concern about the movement in 6th and 7th, and some parents are questioning the timing of why we're doing that now when we've just become a red community. You know, wouldn't it make more sense to maybe hold off on having more transitions and more potential opportunities for close contacts until we're kind of out of this bit of an uptick? I don't have any issue with K and 1 wearing masks. I think the kids are very compliant, and I think it'll be fine. So it's more of the fact that we're taking that step almost like kind of makes us question a little bit more the 6th and 7th grade.
Yep. And we'll take a look at it. We'll continue to evaluate 6th and 7th grade. If we see any evidence of it being a concern, we're going to go back and put them students back into the classroom. And as I said, I know there's been a couple parents who've expressed concern, and there's been as many parents, if not more, who've actually expressed to the school. I don't know what they're doing on social media, but in terms of people who've contacted the school, we've had more positive response than negative response, but we've had both. And I've had positive response in the school being in the building from students and from teachers. And I guess our answer is that it's an interesting thing, because if you really look at, up until this week, all of our positive cases of students at the middle high school were in 7th grade. And you could argue that in 2 ways. You could say our 8 through 12 who've been moving all about the building haven't had any positive cases. And 7th grade who've been stagnant has had all the positive cases. It's very interesting that up until this week, it changed this week, but up until this week, district-wide, all of our positive cases were in 2 grades. They were all either in 1st grade or in 7th grade. And I can't make a medical diagnosis of why, if moving was good or moving was bad, because some of our positive cases among staff have also been in that grade level. So that there could be an argument that the staff moving between rooms could have had some connection, though there's no evidence of community spread in those grades. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know, but ultimately, I think it came out of the fact that we felt like we've been successful 8 through 12 and having some movement, and it's always that balancing test of curriculum, education, the balancing of what's the best for students' education versus what's health and safety. And in 6th and 7th grade, we made a determination that some of the educational benefits we were going to achieve from this balanced out. We didn't feel like there was a great increase in health and safety risks because we're doing it successfully in 8 through 12. And if it's certainly something we can go back on if we're concerned about it.
Alrighty. So seeing no more. So this implementation of masks for the K through 1, K through, sorry. Will this also be evaluated to see if, I want to see where the cases lie after you implement the masks on them, and see what the data is then as well. I mean, if it's shown that the same amount of cases are happening, will the mandate be taken off of them, or if they show that they?
We'll always evaluate the situation, but I think the mask one, I mean, our intention is to stay with it right now, but it's not a mandate, so things that aren't 100% mandate, we're always evaluating, and we've been changing the situation all the time. We've been changing throughout the year as things go along.
Okay, because I know that, like you said, the mask issue was a big concern for people.
But I wanted to take a step back. Really, it was a concern that hasn't been an issue.
Right, yeah.
It's something that was a concern that really honestly hasn't been an issue.
Mm-hmm. And what was on the mask design and designs for kids that want to be creative? Can they still do that, or can they?
Yeah, most people wear their own masks. We provide masks for people, but almost everyone's wearing their own masks.
Just kind of make it as kind of fun as possible. Yeah. Jen, go ahead. Jason,
yeah, I just wanted to kind of state, like, all the first graders that had that became positive, none of them contracted it from school, so they would have been positive whether or not they were wearing masks at school or not, because they all contracted it from family members. So I think moving to them wearing masks is not going to control cases, because we've had no spread in school in those grades. And I think that's going to be an argument that we're going to get from parents who may not be happy with this mandate, is that there's been no spread in the school. So there's the justification of why we're doing it is more so because of staff concerns, and to put, the staff are probably the most at risk of contracting something from a positive child. And I totally understand and respect their position, which is why I don't have an issue. I just felt like I needed to clarify that for you, because, like, none of these kids caught COVID in school. If they had been wearing masks all the time, these same kids still would have been positive because they were exposed outside of school.
Right. Thank you, Jen. Jason.
Jen, to your last comment, that's a presumption. We can't prove that one way or another where the kids got it from. But I forgot what I was going to say now. Oh, so is this a policy change? Do we actually need to vote on this?
From my perspective, I did not view it as a policy change. I felt like this was something that's that the administration can do under the guidelines. But certainly you can say you want to vote on it, you want to take a vote on it.
No, I just wanted to just, like, procedurally, if this was something that we just had to do, or is this just like, hey?
Yeah, I felt like so from my perspective, this was under the guidance of the administration, because it's not a mandate from the state, and I felt like it was under the purview of the administration to make that decision. But so someone could move to make a vote on it.
No, that's fine.
I feel like that's going to give it a little more. Solidify it a little bit more.
I'm good.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on that.
There's a third piece of this.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So the third piece is
jumping ahead.
Yeah, the CDC and the Department of Public Health have updated their guidance on quarantining for close contacts. At this time, DESE has not updated their guidance to match the new DPH guidance. So DESE's guidance has remained the same. So the current guidance that we've been following is, which we actually talked about, I think, in our last meeting, is that if someone's identified as a close contact, they can get tested on day 8 PCR test, and if they have a negative test result, they can return on day 11. So they don't have to do the full 14 days of quarantine, because the original guidance was 14 days. And if you were identified as a close contact, whether you tested or not, you had to quarantine for 14 days from your time that you last saw the positive person. Then they modified that a little bit, and they said, well, okay, you can test on day 8 with a PCR test. If the PCR test comes back negative, then you can return on day 11, which shortens up the quarantine period a little bit. The new guidance says that you can test on day 5 of your close quarantine with either a PCR or a rapid test. Then if you're negative, you can return and end your quarantine on day 8. And that the max quarantine would be 10 days. So the new guidance eliminates the 14 days. So as I said, DESE has not yet adopted that guidance, and as a school district, we have not yet adopted that guidance. The reason why I wanted to bring it up here is I know it's definitely being talked about within the community. And the CDC and the DPH have both made it their official guidance. So it's probably the guidance that's being followed in many workplaces now. It's probably the guidance that doctors are going to tell parents. So that guidance right now is a little different than the DESE guidance and the school guidance. So now that may change. Maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks, DESE adopts this guidance and comes back with a recommendation. I will say that I've talked about this a little bit with the school nurses. They have a little bit of a concern about going to this new guidance. They feel like it may not be restrictive enough. That's just their concern. And so I think this is something we'd have to bring back to the committee if we were going to look to adopt this guidance. I think we'd have to have a discussion about it. But my position right now is that DESE has not adopted this guidance. And so as a school district, we haven't adopted this new guidance. But I wanted to put it out there that guidance document is out there from CDC and DPH. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about that or heard about that new guidance or.
Anybody? No? Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you for the update on that.
On guidance updates.
Well, those 2 last items, the masks and the updated guidance will be, I'm sure, talked about in our upcoming meetings again.
Yeah.
For further updates. Okay, we're going to go to item B, fiscal year 22 budget.
I'm going to turn it to Brad, who's going to talk a little about the FY22 budget and the capital improvement list that we're going to.
Yeah, Scott, can we actually start with capital improvements? It's easier to start with.
Yeah.
So as you guys know, we're doing our yearly 10-year forecast. Realistically, anything outside of year 1 kind of gets shuffled around, so we really don't worry about it too much. Just some quick timelines on this. We got really kind of a late notice from the town to turn these in. That's why this is kind of so late to get into. Usually we do them in November, but there was just a very early November. There was a tight turnaround time to get them in. So we kind of looked at what we had last year, moved some things around based on where we thought funding may end up, and where we left things. So we can go through this quick. So you can go to slide 2. Do you have control of the, Scott, or?
Oh, sorry, yep, my fault.
Okay, no, you're good. So transportation, we're going to ask for 2 buses. They replaced our 2008 buses, and this is just replacing the 2 that we requested in FY wiped out in our second town meeting, obviously because of a shortfall on revenue. So this would then get us kind of back on our 3 Nexus Townwide Technology. You guys got it. The school maintains this account, but there's 2 separate, Stephen Mahoney's actually the one that signs off on all the expenses on this. So it's both for town and school. We have our townwide copier lease. Again, that freed up money from our budget last year to put this in capital. Both the town and school get $27,000 each for personal computer replacement. That goes on our 5-year plan that we have for replacement of teacher PCs and administrator PCs. $100,000 for Chromebooks. It's crazy to say this is actually going to be our 5th year of Chromebooks from our first initial 400 that we bought back in 2016, I want to say. Correct if I'm wrong on that, Scott or Meredith, but it's kind of a big year. It's our first year of the of the second cycle wave coming. Middle high school classroom upgrades, that 40,000 is for I call them smart boards. I know they've changed names since I was in school, but I still stick with the smart board. The 40,000 will outfit one of the departments. This is year 2. Last year we did I want to say it was the math department.
They're all clear. They're all clear touch TVs now.
I like going
So
with smart board.
it's a smart TV hooked into the computer, operates. So that's just better than the smart board, actually.
All right, well, I'll stick with smart board.
That's what all of our math teachers have.
Brad, this is what happens when you get older. You just
I guess
grasp on to the thing you knew, and that was it.
Townwide internet is our 2 gigs. Again, I think this is, if I have to look back on our records, but I think this is year 3 of 3 of our contract for townwide internet for 2 gigs. So we'll look at next year renewing that contract, and it'll probably go up a little bit. They usually do, but 25,000 covers the entire town for our 2 gigs. And townwide wireless access points. Again, this covers the entire town. We are able to get this at 3-year financing. This is kind of tucking money away. This would be year 2 of 3. Next year, we're going to ask for a bigger allotment when the financing actually starts, and we're able to increment that as we go on. Any questions on townwide technology? Nope. All right. FY22 notable items, district-wide curriculum, same amount that we asked for last year and we were approved for. Again, it would be the same split. 100 grand would go into our CTE programs at the middle high school. 30,000 would go into elementary curriculum. I know they're talking about looking at some reading materials and what they can do with that. Again, the good thing is if you don't spend this money, it kind of sits on account to use as things come up. And we definitely have started to burn our middle high school money for technology and engineering programs. And as they continue to develop that curriculum, it comes at a pretty expensive cost. So hopefully the town continues to approve this dollar amount going forward. Culinary classroom, we were approved for 100 grand last year. After looking closely at where the 100 grand brings us, we'd like to request another 50 to bring that grand total to 150 for that entire project. Auditorium lighting, this was actually 50,000 was allocated for auditorium lighting upgrades either 2 or 3 years ago now. We've been in a couple committees that have looked at this. The proposals we were getting were anywhere from 70 to 100 grand. We think we can kind of value engineer a few things out of that to keep it right around the $80,000 mark. So this 30,000 on the additional 50 will give us 80, which is right in the ballpark of where we need to be to fully get the project we really want. That was the thing. 50 was a little bit low. We could do the project for 50, but it's really not, it doesn't meet the needs of what we really want to put out for everyone in the lighting. So I think the 80 grand will cover us there. Cafeteria and library upgrades, this is new. Mike Schultz would like to add a upgrade just to the basic library and the cafeteria of seating arrangements, kind of have a spot for students to be after school in the main lobby areas. This is going to be request 1 of 2. Next year, we're also going to request another 75 to 100 grand, depending on where money falls. But again, this is just to upgrade the cafeteria and library to the new 21st century libraries. Excuse me, not libraries, keep saying over here, because that's another thing that's on the long-term plan. The cafeteria and lobby, more of the 21st century kind of style of the cafe style of cafeterias and the hangout of the lobby. Athletic equipment, 15,000. We really don't carry any money to replace athletic equipment in our operating budget, and we don't cover enough through user fees. So this is just a basic request I have every couple years to do to replace just equipment that gets old and obsolete. Any questions on this slide?
Brad, I had a quick question. Wasn't one of the things we spoke about at our last joint meeting with the selectmen figuring in money for the auditorium for cameras and audio upgrade for when town meetings are filmed there or other events are filmed there? Is that in the forecast anywhere for another year? Not for 22, obviously.
No, we didn't put that on, to be honest with you, because I think a lot of the discussion was Area 58 involved in that, and who wants to cover that piece of the project, if I remember correctly?
I think that was about the Zoom discussion.
That was separate from the Zoom, yeah. No, the 80,000 is literally just to replace the lighting and a couple of components of the stage that we need for our plays and whatnot. But we definitely can add that. I can ask Stephen to kind of start researching that to add on. But the 80,000 that would be allocated between the 50 that we currently have plus the 30 for the auditorium, that would not be included of the camera upgrades and all that stuff that you mentioned.
Right. I know we were talking about Area 58, Richard Area 58 was asking about possibly seeing if we could get some robo cameras in there mounted to the walls that they could remotely operate from another room with an audio upgrade. Because actually the audio, we've had more problems with the audio there trying to film meetings and events and everything. So I'd like to, I'm see what the committee wants to, what their decision is on it, but I'd like to see it on the forecast, but.
Sure. No, I can ask Stephen to ask for quotes on that. And it's ringing a bell now. They want something similar to what's in the main town hall room, correct?
Right, and then they asked about maybe getting a little room to be their control, operations center. If they got that, if they had the robo cameras.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the sound system in the auditorium definitely needs to be upgraded. We've done some minor adjustments. So we do have a new sound system in there, and we do have new speakers in there. So the sound's a lot better than it used to be.
Right.
It's certainly not state-of-the-art for what a state-of-the-art sound system would be. And that's something we could certainly price out in terms of looking to redo that space.
And also the sound board probably is.
Well, that's what I was talking about in terms of having a whole
Yeah.
new, we've done some patchwork sound adjustments in the auditorium, so it's better than it was.
Right.
But it would need, an entire new sound system. It could benefit from having that, and probably not something, it's probably something that could be on the 10-year plan. I don't think it's something we would look to do in FY22, because that's going to be a
Right.
pretty hefty project
Yeah.
to totally upgrade the sound in there. But I think it's something we can put onto the 10-year forecast.
I think it's important because even though town meeting is broadcast from that's a town event, it's still, our building, so I think it's important to have that on there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
See how much it costs. All right.
Agreed.
Thank you.
And that's something too, that depending on what the actual cost is, with all the boards and everything else that could actually benefit from that, maybe FinCom would be interested in covering that.
Maybe.
Just looking ahead at the future, 2 to 4 years, just continuing the money that goes to townwide tech, transportation and curriculum, middle high school, the locker room renovation, student desks and library and cafeteria and lobby renovations. Some student desks we were able to get this year actually due to COVID and just needing the additional seats. For the science department, for example, they had kind of like tables that they were kind of working together that they needed individual seats, so we were able to purchase those under COVID funding. But one thing I want to keep on here, I'll go through this first though. The 5 to 10 year plan, again, just continuing with the townwide tech, transportation and curriculum. Middle high school is restroom fixtures. We had a few of those already done back a couple years ago. Auditorium renovation, student lockers, and CES. I always have this on here. I know no one wants to hear this in town, but the biggest piece of CES that's going to come up soon is the technology in there. And if you remember, we spent, I think, $1.2 or $1.3 million on the technology in that building that really only has, every part's different, but anywhere from a 5 to 10 year lifespan. So you're going to need to put at least another 1.5 million, let's say, over the next 10 years into that to replace that cycle. Again, I know no one really wants to talk about it. They still view the elementary as a brand new building, but it's reality of new buildings is everything that comes with it gets on a replacement cycle, especially with technology in this day and age. So just putting the plug out there for that. But a lot of these items
the auditorium renovation that's on here is like a big picture, Andy, total gutting of the auditorium, new seats, new sound, like a whole new facility. I think we have it on there. I don't even know what the number is. It's a big
I want to say it's almost 900,
Yeah,
either 750 or 900,000. Yeah. But the thing to mention on these is, again, everything fits into capital long term. And if it keeps getting kicked back and all of a sudden year in year, I don't know, 2030, and you're only 5 years away from replacing or going for a debt exclusion, I should say, for a new building, do you really want to sink that $1 million cost into replacing it? It's just going to be a decision that everyone's going to have to really weigh into, and depending on when this falls on the replacement scale or into the capital improvement forecast and list, and when it actually gets brought up, that's really just a decision you guys are going to have to make, and the town's going to have to make in general, of do you want to put a couple $1 million into this building that you're going to be replacing in 5 to 10 years, let's say, or renovating. I shouldn't say just replacing. Could be doing a renovation too.
Definitely a discussion for the future.
You know, and really, I'm going to go back just for a second, Brad. For us, really the key piece here is the district-wide curriculum. You know, so that $130,000 with $100,000 to support CTE build out next year is in the culinary classroom. And so we made that investment this year, and it's helped build that technology engineering and the pathways presentation that we made at the last meeting. And you know, this $100,000 is going to be a key piece in terms of building out that curriculum for us and building out the CTE pathways. And you know, so that's a big focus area for us in terms of capital investments for next year.
And again, just to summarize, this represents the school administration's approved priority list of items. If you look in the backup folder you guys have, you'll see the Excel spreadsheet that has everything mapped out over the course of 10 years. And again, funding of all these may be moved around to meet the needs of all departments of the town and available budget.
Okay.
All right.
So we're on the budget now?
Yep. So just some quick notes about FY22, our level service presentation tonight. My number one thing is we are very early in this process. I know everyone gets antsy this time of year to get into the budget and level service, but just a reminder, when you see the numbers later on, this is usually where we are every year to start the budget cycle of a level service budget. So school percentage, just a reminder for you guys, is 69.688% of what's available in the budget from available revenues after we take out fixed costs and all that stuff. School and town administration is going to meet next week. Scott and myself are meeting with Rick and Meg to go over the forecast, to talk about really where we think numbers are going to fall. It's kind of hard right now with state and local aid numbers, just because we still, even if you have a trend, you really don't know where everything's going to go with COVID and all that stuff. So, but we'll try to get a good number rolling out of there by the end of next week. Level service has no changes to current fiscal year positions. Projected increases for fixed costs are built in, so the numbers aren't always flat from year to year, and contracts are included for increases that we have on those. The one thing I want to highlight is this does include the additional nurse position at the middle high school and 2 custodial positions, 1 in each building, added due to COVID. So while it's a level service budget, those positions weren't approved during last year's budget. These are additions, but they're level service because essentially we're covering a portion of them out of this fiscal year. So the grand total of those 2 amounts were $180,000 between salaries and benefits. So that's a big piece to notice when we talk about numbers. Realistically, if we weren't in this COVID situation, you could take that 180 right off our starting numbers.
Okay.
Budget highlights, Plymouth County Retirement Board's going up 7% this year, which represents a $120,000 increase to our budget as well. Right now, the entire increase is in the budget. If you remember last year, we approved through the budget forecast that $55,000 came off our operating budget because the town made a one-time payment from one of the 3 kind of holding tanks they have for new solar growth. I don't know whether or not that'll be approved this year. We'll have a discussion on next week with the town administration to see if they think that's a possibility. But right now I'm carrying that entire number in our budget. Health insurance I have in the budget as 1% increase right now. It's good and bad. It's great this year because we love the temporary savings with revenues are going to be shortfalls on revenues. It's great to have that savings. The negative though is once elective surgeries pick back up, it's only going to increase even higher. So that 7 to 8% we get on a usual year, we may see 10 to 12 to 13, 14, 15% jumps possibly as COVID hopefully expires, and surgeries start picking back up. But again, just based on revenues being short, I think that's a good start to help out our budget, because don't forget, usually that's one of the biggest drivers outside of our salary increases. There's 7 vocational students budgeted. Currently we have 6, I added 1 in. One thing I want to highlight is 4 of them are scheduled to be seniors next year. I'll talk about that in the end of what I think we can kind of do with money for that. And just one thing to highlight that all schools are going through right now was due to COVID, teachers had a lot of access in time for PD to kind of move along the scales. for salary columns. And we had a lot of column changes that I move in FY21's budget. You'll see when we ask for the journal entries, but that's coming at a cost too to our FY22 budget, just catching up with those column changes. Just want to note that. So recap of our offsets. Our 240 and 305 grants is $605,000. We build that into the Carver Elementary School and Middle High School ESP salary lines. Circuit breaker is $521,000 as our offset. That goes directly to offset out of district tuitions. Want to note on this though, that 521 was representative of what we were scheduled to get in July for this current school year. So don't forget, circuit breaker, we're always reimbursed a year behind. We've done good budgeting, we've practiced good budgeting, and we've saved up now where we always have a year to the good. So this 521 was what we were scheduled to take in for revenues from FY21. That is going to be decreased. They were not going to be able to fund fully fund circuit breaker like they originally thought to the levels. So whatever we end up having for an offset, or what we end up taking for revenues when they finalize that, that will have to come off this number. I'm going to guess it's going to be anywhere from 25 to 50,000. So that number could end up being anywhere from 475. Let's just use that as an estimate right there. Tuition's in. I'm keeping that at 0 right now. Again, that's money we take in from schools who place their student with us in the Carver school system if we have a program that they need. Pre-K fee, 40,000. That number is down this year we're taking in. We do have enough money again though to cover. We've kept up by incrementally saving away that we're able to fund this year's shortfall with revenues we've received. So I'm hopeful next year we do get over 40,000, but just for a safe offset estimate, I put in 40,000. School choice right now is our usual 400,000 offset. That goes directly into offset teacher salaries at the elementary school. I do want to note on this, we have some flexibility. We have been able to build up. Right now it's at 500,000. I think it's going to probably increase anywhere from 700 to 800,000 in our revenue, in our revolving funds that we'll be able to access if we want. Again, we've been able to do that by having savings throughout the year and kind of being able to offset our operating budget with those savings we have in the operation budget and kind of put school choice back into the revolving account instead of using the entire offset. So with that being said, we'll talk about later on in my last slide, I highlight the vocational students and the 4 that we have and what we can do with one-time money to help offset that cost. Athletics is 150 per sport. That's bringing in 60,000. That goes directly to offset middle high school athletics revolving account. Intramurals is 200 a year. I'm going to estimate right now we're going to take in 5,000. Again, that just covers the intramural cost in the revolving account. And the parking fee, I get questions on this every year. Where does that money go? The $50 we charge goes directly to offset our middle high school graduation. It gets put in a revolving account, and then the overage from graduation expenses gets journal entered over and gets offsetted by that money in that revolving account. Any questions on that?
Yeah, does anybody have anything? I can't see
I know it's a
Stephanie.
lot.
Hold on a second.
Sure.
No, okay, nothing, Stephanie. I have a question about circuit breaker, Brad. Is the new special ed transportation reimbursement in there?
It is. They funded, I think the first year they're trying to fund it at 25%, if I recall. I think was the first increment. So they said that's going to be the first thing to go. They're right off the bat.
That's what they're not going to fund.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
No, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, you think about Carver in general, we're kind of fortunate because you think about all the schools who kind of created their budgets based on getting, I know we're getting a small portion for transportation, but you think about the large scale changes like that Worcester was going to get from the Student Opportunity Act funding that they're not going to get now to try to manage that. So thankfully we're in a better spot of having it only be transportation for us.
Right. And plus we do a lot of in-house services too.
Correct.
All right.
So here's the numbers. I know they're not pretty looking, but this is kind of generally where we start every level service budget. So the left-hand column is our FY21. That's the exact amount that we got from the town, $24,237,099. If you go to the column to the right of that, it's the increment that I added in for an additional increase of what we get. So an estimate for FY22 with a 0.5% increase is $24,358,000. A 1% increase is $24,458,000. $480,000. 1.5 is $24,600,000, and a 2% increase is $24,721,000. If you go to the column to the right of that, our level service, which you guys have the backup for in the file, in the folder, is $25,158,000. And if you just take the column in the middle, subtract off the projected FY22, that gives you your projected shortfalls along the side. But there's good news on the next slide, so don't let those numbers.
Well, and the reality is right now we don't know what the town is going.
Exactly. And we don't know where our projected level service too has a lot of variables in it still.
Yep.
So there's a lot of moving parts on this. But our items still in play. FY21 grants, we're going to be able to roll over to FY22. That's standard practice. But I don't foresee us having to hit all the grants that we usually put for the offsets in for salaries. We're not going to have to expend all that money, so we can roll them over into FY22 as a budget offset. Again, not the best because it's only one-time money, but it plugs a gap that kind of helps out from a year-to-year basis. Health insurance enrollment and rates. Right now, even though I put a 1% in the budget, it's trending at a 0%, and that would save about $40,000. I just got the updated insurance enrollment numbers, and that's actually projecting the savings of right about $60,000. Again, people add, drop all the time. That can change. February is our cutoff date for that we use, and we lock out the hard numbers. That's what we use in our budget in February. So I'll definitely do that before I move over to Plymouth and have that locked in, so you guys have that sheet and it's set to go. Again, so those two lines right now, or not those two lines, but those two items right there in health insurance, if it does go to a 0 and those numbers stay consistent, that's another $100,000 that you take off the level service request right there. We're working with the town next week. We're going to have this discussion on using free cash to offset the remaining 2 years of mitigation funds for both the school and town. The school's portion of that is $82,000 every year. That's built into that level service budget. So if that gets approved, and even if we approve it between Scott, myself, Megan, Rick, it has to go to town meeting to get approved in free cash. The grand total of that is $115,000 for the next 2 years. The school's portion, as I mentioned before, is $82,000. That's $82,000 you take off right off the bat from that level service number, which definitely helps. So hopefully this gets supported.
And that cost goes away in after FY23.
Correct. It brings you to the last year of what we owe on it, and then it's covered. So to me, this makes sense. It's a cost that it's coming to a close. Plug one-time money in it. It helps both the town and schools budgets out, and it makes a lot of sense. So hopefully we get that approved. Out of district transportation and tuitions, we have the option to possibly prepay some collaborative tuitions if we have remaining funds this year. What's going to drive that is, don't forget when the coronavirus first came out, the state approved, I think it was through federal funds, we got $142,000 direct payment to the school to kind of use where we felt fit. What we did to get the money allocated was we just offset the tuition lines for special ed, and that kind of freed up $142,000 from our operating budget. Now we've had some movements out that will eat into that savings. At the same time, even if we have 50 or 60 grand, we can prepay one collaborative tuition, and that number will come off what our level service budget number is there as well. So again, anywhere from 50 to 100,000 savings, hopefully, is what we end up having. More positive news, which is impacting FY21. We're able to hire a couple 7D drivers, which we're able to bring in a couple routes that we had that we were contracting out in-house. And when we bring in those, we usually can do 2 routes with one driver rather than contract out 2 routes. So you say it cuts your expense kind of in half. It's a positive trend. Hopefully we keep those drivers and we have routes for them, and we'll be good to go on that. So that's going to bring us savings for not only FY21, but FY22 as well. The voc tuitions, this is what I mentioned before. Right now we have 4 seniors scheduled to be next year. My thought and my push to you guys would be to use $100,000 of school choice funds. You've saved it. It makes sense to plug this in for a one-time expense to offset your vocational tuitions. That then brings your budget down another $100,000. And those 4 seniors are off your books in FY23. Now, there may be students behind it that come on and we do add on for vocational school, But at the same time, you hope that you have some savings in there, even if only one goes out instead of the 4. It's only 25 you have to find the following year rather than the 100. And you don't make any cuts in FY22 that you really don't need to make for FY23. Again, you guys have control on that. That's just my recommendation. Next one is state and town revenue. Again, it's early in FY22. State Chapter 70 estimate's going to come in late January. We don't know where that's going to be. My guess is that they probably get level funding again. That's going to be their early estimate. Not ideal for our preparation of the budget, but we'll see where that goes. And then it's cut off there, but the charter numbers, this is one of the big negatives, is that numbers continue to increase. We've had more and more kids choose charter schools instead of going to our Carver public schools. And every year that number grows, we see a massive decrease in revenue to the town, just based on the formula of how that works. And next year is going to be even a bigger hit to the town for revenues. Any questions on that?
Anybody?
Oh, it's just sad. This is my last level service budget with you guys.
Oh,
It's
man.
sad to think about this stuff.
You'll get to add some more numerals to the budget next door. Even harder to say.
I better start practicing.
All right, so is that everything? We to go to, so no one has any questions, comments on that at all, Brad's presentation?
Again, we're early. Scott, I don't know if we want to go over a quick timeline. My thought is after we meet next week with Rick and Meg, we'll kind of gear up on our side with the administrator and come back to you guys in first January meeting with what our recommendation probably is for the budget.
Yeah, so the January meeting will have a more formalized budget recommendation. Because we'll have a number from the town. We'll have a better sense on some of the items that are still in play. So we'll be able to get a little closer to what any kind of projected shortfall might be and what we might have to do to combat that.
Okay.
Yep.
Brett,
And in the
Brett,
background, you guys have, in the folder, you'll see you have the line item budget. Just gives you more detail.
Brad, I have a quick question for you. How much do we have in the, if you have the info, how much do we have in the special ed reserve account?
I want to say it's right around 400 grand. I think it's just shy of 400.
Okay. Thank you. I wasn't sure of the exact number on that.
No, I think it's like 398 or something. I can actually, I can VPN in and I can actually get that number. So I will do that after.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so we're gonna move on to item G.
All right.
Chief Operations and Finance Office Interview Committee.
Yeah, so I put something out to the school committee saying who might be interested in serving on that interview committee. Historically for that position, we've had at least one school committee member be part of that interview process, and I'm in the, we've posted the position. We're in the process of setting up the interview committee. Most likely, we probably won't interview until after January 4th. But when I put it out to the committee who would be interested, everybody expressed interest. So I figured I had to bring it to you guys to discuss who the representatives would be. So all 5 of you expressed some interest in being on the interview committee. So my recommendation would be probably 2 members.
All right, well, okay, Jason, go ahead.
You can go ahead first, Andy.
No, I'm just gonna say, I told Scott I would do it if no one else wanted to do it. But with my schedule being the way it is, it might be just easier for someone who's more free than I am to be a representative, but I will do it if no one else wants to do it. But
I think you got away with this one, Andy. It's all right.
What?
No,
I got away with it?
No, I feel strongly. I really want to be a part of this, just based on my background, professional background. Also, when it came to the reopening committees, when we had the same situation, I relented last time, and I am not going to relent this time. Just to be honest. But I think, this is something I definitely want to be a part of. That's all I got to say.
Jason,
Yes.
can you tell us how you really feel?
Happy holidays, everybody.
That was a joke, I'm sorry. No, that's good. Okay, oh, there you go. I like that.
Right.
All right, Stephanie?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I know James isn't here.
James actually served on each of the last 2. So
Right.
James was the school committee members, the school committee's representative when we hired Brad, and then previously, and when we must have been when we hired Peter Gray. I have the two search.
I think it was.
Okay. I mean, I want to be on the committee given my personal background and my 4 years on this committee and my history of working in town hall and knowing a lot of the players. But I would certainly acquiesce to James because he's been on the school committee for a lot longer than I have. So I just wasn't sure how we were going to address that where he isn't here.
Yeah, James and I didn't have a long conversation about it. So I don't know how helpful that is for me in terms of saying, like, I don't know how strongly he feels. Like he was big.
Right.
He put it out to me. I think his actual question to me was, has anybody expressed interest? Yes. Yeah. And if not, I wouldn't do it. And I responded, everyone's interested.
It's kind of the same as me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think seeing what Scott just said to us, I think we could actually choose 2 members tonight. And I think James, like myself, would probably.
So what he actually
don't
said to
want
me,
it.
I'll pull his email up exactly. Have you had any volunteers yet for the selection committee for Brad?
Okay. I just wanted to find out if he was, adamant about or felt strongly about being on the committee because I figured he had been on it before. So I know he has the experience.
All right, let me see. Hold on a second. Scroll down. All right, so,
Um,
okay, Stephanie, you
so-
done?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think that obviously we're probably going to interview before our next scheduled meeting, which is January 11th.
Okay, I just didn't want to cut you off, Stephanie. Jen?
Yeah, so I said that I would be interested in doing this. My field of work is slightly different, but not too different. I mean, obviously, I have my master's degree in accounting, and I am an operations supervisor. I manage operations. I do budgets. So it's this position is closely aligned to what I do in my day-to-day job. So I felt like my knowledge and expertise could be used here. But I will also say that this time of year is my busiest time of year because I'm in insurance and this is when we renew all our policies. So, I mean, if Jason and Stephanie feel really passionate about wanting to be on there, I certainly trust their judgment. And I know Stephanie also has a financial background. So I was interested because I felt like I could lend knowledge and, in an interview situation, ask questions of somebody to really test their financial knowledge and background to make sure we could get somebody that's as savvy as Brad. But I trust Jason and Stephanie, so I'm okay acquiescing to them as well.
And whoever the members are, we could also send them our own personal thoughts on the position and what we would like, the kind of person we'd like to see hired, and what the options are as well. So, do we need a vote on this, or we just need to accept
You do
2
not need a
people?
vote. We're not formalizing a subcommittee of the school committee to hire the
Gotcha. You just need 2
operations
representatives.
and finance officer.
All right, I mean, I'm fine with Stephanie
I
and
brought
Jason.
it to the meeting solely because everyone expressed interest, and I felt we
Right.
need to have a discussion about it.
Yeah, we talked about it before. I have no problem with Stephanie and Jason being the representatives. If everyone else is fine with that, I'm fine with it.
Okay, sounds like Stephanie and Jason.
Okay,
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
okay, no problem. All right, so then we're gonna go on to recommendations from the superintendent. Item A, school committee meeting schedule.
Yep, so at our last meeting, we talked about staying with 2 meetings a month through the rest of the year, except for June and not December. And I think we selected Mondays. So I just want to share everybody's schedule and make sure this works. If anybody sees any conflicts with with our next meeting being Monday, January 11th.
Let me just look real quick. It'll be January. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was seeing down there. 11th and 25th. Yeah, I don't see anything. Anybody else have any problems with the Monday schedule?
You know, we stayed away obviously from the February and April vacation weeks.
Jason, do you have any?
No, that all looks good to me. Thanks.
All right, looks good to me too.
Right.
Stephanie?
No, I'm just laughing. We'll meet on my birthday, but that's fine.
Oh, we'll have to have a cake for you.
Which
I
day is
know.
that?
Yeah, what day is it?
Oh, January 25th.
Ah, there you
Oh,
go.
that's my Nana's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, like I was thinking, how am I gonna give Scott Girl Scout cookies? I'll have to drop them off at central office once I get some.
Right.
I think you just eat them in the Zoom camera and
Right,
make them jealous.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh no, I wouldn't do that, Andy.
All right, so that's fine. Let me go back to the schedule here. Actually, you have it there, Scott, right?
Oh, sorry, I just pulled it down. Yep. Finally.
Yeah. I have to. I do this on my phone. I have the schedule on the agenda on my phone, so I can keep it in front of me. When I go off of the calendar, I lose my agenda.
And then, so are we all set with these dates? These dates work?
Yeah. Yeah, we're all set with that.
Then our
So we're gonna
last
go-
item, which we do, is budget transfers.
Yep. FY21 budget transfers.
Yep, so this
Going
is a
back to Brad.
continuance. Yep, this is just a continuance of a crazy budget year. This just cleans up. The big piece is our teacher salaries and column changes and personnel adjustments we had. This is the final touches on that. It gets everything updated. Big thing is a couple of COVID stuff on here that I'll highlight at the end, I guess. But all of this in here has all of our COVID expenses that we're trying to get reimbursed. Once we get that, we'll take the expense that we've already had from our operating budget and charge it back to the COVID line. So just note that there's about $500,000 of expenses in here that are actually going to come off our books.
Great.
On line 72 and 73, Scott, if you could go there. These are just our long-term subline. Again, this is kind of our catch-all for all the positions we had to add for remote learning. Any long-term sub or full-year positions that we created, we put them on there. Again, CARES funds only covers up through December 30th. So just a reminder of that any savings we have throughout the budget line this year or any lines, I'm trying to throw into that account to cover the offset because I can tell you that line will be short. So as you go through this and as you guys get deeper into the year, any freed up money you have from athletics, let's say, or from another line, that should just continue to be transferred to offset that overage we're going to have in the long-term sub line.
Okay.
I can't read my writing. This is why. Sports, athletics, and extracurricular activities. That's going to be, as I mentioned before, we're going to have probably savings in that because not every sport is actually running.
You know what line? Are you on a specific line item? Or?
No, this is just the general. This is just general. I got general for the rest of this. But level 3,000 is the sports, Scott, if you want to keep scrolling down a little bit. Any money saved in there, and there's also extracurricular activities such as travel. A lot of the stipends we pay for that stuff this year for foreign field trips. That's all been washed. So again, that savings, we had that money in our budget. We can move that around to cover shortfalls in other areas. Transportation, that should be on this one. Yep. Line 171. 32,000 I'm able to move. And again, that's just changes in placements that we're able to cover from our drivers in-house. And again, the positive on this is I'm hopeful that this continues on into FY22, FY23, because we're able to save there, able to put it back in the classroom, which is really what we want to do.
Right.
Utilities, that's the 4,000 series, Scott, if you just want to scroll down a little bit. We are not gonna have the anticipated savings I thought we'd have at the beginning of the year. At the elementary level, we actually turned our sprinkler system on this year. That's the first time it's been up and running. And the electricity cost of that was pretty significant in the first couple months of the school. So next year in FY22, I do have the number bumped up to 210,000. They're both the same for middle high and elementary. But I don't think you're going to have the savings that we usually have on a given year. Again, hopefully it's a mild winter. We'll have savings on natural gas and maybe a small amount of electricity, but again, not the usual savings I'm anticipating that we have on a year-to-year basis on this, but also not a massive shortfall from under budgeting. So we're kind of in line with where we thought we would be on a year-to-year.
Are there any updates on electrical contracts? You know, a
So no,
contract?
we're still covered. We're still covered through of 2021 of January of 2022, excuse me, I want to say. In the budget book, it lists when that contract expires on there.
And is we're still getting a good rate on that, or did it?
So it all depends. When right now, if you were to probably compare what electricity rates are going for, we're probably overpaying a slight bit. But also, when we locked into this 3 years ago, we were getting a deal. We were getting a steal. So you lock in long term, and you look at it, you're doing well. But then reality hits 3 years from down the road. You don't really know where you're going to fall.
That's a chance you take.
Exactly. But to be honest with you, the savings we had for the first 2 years was awesome. So we've definitely cashed in. In the long run, we've definitely saved in that contract.
Well, from what we were paying back then, I mean, to go to that contract, it was a good deal.
Yeah, I think we almost went from like, I think 14 cents a kilowatt to like, I think right around 10 and change.
Yeah.
CES for facilities, same thing in the 4000 series. Just want to highlight, as the building is, I keep saying aging. I shouldn't call it aging. As we go year to year in this building,
As it matures.
Yes, as it matures. There you go. Contracted services have crept up on us as warranties expire. You have to get on these contractors annual, because they're sole source kind of for servicing of these things that we have in the building. The contracts that are coming in for renewals after the warranty expires are higher than what we originally anticipated. And there was no manual for this when we took the building over. So you'll see in FY22, we're going to ask to put a little bit more money in there to help offset those. But as we go year to year, not only are the contracts going to go up, but also just the general maintenance on the building and repairs. And on line 227, Scott. Line 227 is kind of our, it's where I'm housing right now all of the COVID expenses. So if you take off the 30,000 that was budgeted, the 274 and the 82,000, both those are what would be expended so far for COVID. The 82,000 is going to be all put on a check next week for what's remaining for our open POs. We have all the invoices in, so we'll get everything on the books, ready to go to CARES reimbursement funding for December 30th. So that's all been encumbered. We're good to go there. That entire amount of 350 on that line alone is going to CARES reimbursement. In addition to that, embedded in the other line items that I mentioned before is the additional 150 for salaries spread out for the positions that are COVID eligible, but only through 12/30. Any questions on that?
Anybody?
We do have PPE. I think I have enough for 10 years. We haven't really ripped through it as what we originally anticipated we had to buy. And again, that's based on DESI guidance we bought, but we have plenty of masks. We have, I got all the wipes. We're good to go on that stuff.
Great.
And it was all covered under CARES. So that's part about it.
Yeah.
And that was all I had.
All right. You know, the thing about it is that you talk about the elementary school being everyone thinks of it as a new building and still has costs. But one of the things that I want people to remember that watching this meeting is that we all vowed to make sure we took care of that building, so we maintained it, you know, for the long term. And it means annual costs sometimes, you know. So, all righty. So we need a motion and a second to approve these budget transfers. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the fiscal year 21 budget transfers.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion, comments, questions for Brad on these transfers before we go to a vote? Let me go down and just make sure I see. All right, Jen, did you have something?
No.
Okay, you have just a microphone still on, okay. Okay, then we'll go to roll call vote. Stephanie Clarity?
Stephanie Clarity, aye.
Jen Pratt?
Jen Pratt, aye.
Jason Greenwood,
Jason Greenwood, aye.
and Andy Cottarelli, aye. It's unanimous 4-0. All right, thank you, Brad.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay. Now we go to reports from the school committee. Would anybody like to share anything with the community before we leave? Jason, no, Jason, I thought you had your hand up. Anybody? No one? Jen?
I will. I always have something to say.
There you go.
I hope that everybody had a good Thanksgiving, and it was weird only having one meeting this month. I felt like it was been a very long time since we've gotten an update, getting used to the bi-weekly schedule. As we approach the Christmas holidays, I just hope that people continue to be safe. I know that there was some chatter amongst the community in some of the elementary groups of people, being unhappy that, of the decision we made to not discuss transition of schools this meeting. But seeing that we're now a red community as of today, I do feel that that was a correct choice to not continue that discussion at this meeting. And I hope that parents are understanding that we're trying to do what's best to keep the children safe, and the children are, at least for me, are my top priority in doing what's best for the kids and what's right for them. I hope that everyone continues to stay safe, wear your mask, hand sanitize. Let's try to control the spread in our community so we don't continue to see increased numbers. And I hope that everyone has a happy holiday and a happy new year.
Thank you very much, Jen. Anyone else? Stephanie?
I know, shocking. I want to wish everyone who celebrates a happy Hanukkah. Today is the first night of Hanukkah. And I want to wish everyone that celebrates, whether it's Ramadan or Christmas. We have New Year's coming up. We're not meeting until the New Year, so there's going to be a lot that happens between now and the next time we all get together. And I wish everyone safe, healthy, and happy celebrations. None of us, are living in a reality that we ever anticipated. But I think given all of the challenges that we each face in our individual lives, and then as a school community and as a school district and as part of the Carver community, I think that we're doing a pretty good job. I appreciate the efforts that everyone is putting in, because there is, great responsibility on the students, right? There's great responsibility on the parents, on the teachers, on the staff, on administrators, for everyone to work together, especially in this hybrid model that we're in. And I really think that Carver is doing a really good job. I love the fact that our district is constantly revisiting things. That Scott and his team are saying, hey, this is what we're doing, but how can we do things better? And always looking for, ways to improve and ways to communicate better. And I just ask people, to have continued patience and to realize that everyone is, facing this through a different lens. It was something that I'd seen someone mention on social media, and I thought that was a really good analogy. I am starting to need reading glasses. So even though I'm wearing contact lenses, I had to put my reading glasses on so I could see Brad's, numbers a little better, just a different perspective. So I just want to ask people to continue to have patience and understanding for interacting with others, whether it's inside of school or outside of school. Because like I said, we're all dealing with things, in a different way, and it's definitely challenging. And I just have to say, I'm proud of the job that our district is doing, and I'm so very thankful to be a part of it. And of course, again, to say to Brad, and when is Brad's last official meeting, Scott?
Well, after both meetings in January.
Both meetings in January.
And
okay.
we actually discussed, depending on where we go in terms of a hire, that he might come back for one of the February budget meetings. So we've talked about that with Plymouth. We're gonna kind of share them for a little bit in January and February.
Okay. We'll have to make sure that we plan some kind of remote Zoom
official
celebration, or so. Yeah, we'll have to make sure that
it'll be on your birthday, but the January 25th meeting, we'll have a birthday celebration for you and a going friend.
Just a reminder, all gifts have to be under $50. Okay.
Oh, the Ferrari's out? Oh, forget it.
I would think Brad would want a hoverboard. But anyway, so it's just, I just want to say thank you. So thank you to Scott. Thank you to, Mrs. Maestas, to Mr. Schultz, to everyone in administration, the staff, I mean, the nurses, my gosh. I know that even the teachers, I know that everyone, like Scott had mentioned, a lot of people in the district are working over the weekends. And I really, really hope that over this upcoming holiday break, that everyone can take some time to just de-stress and relax and, shut their brains down for a little while and just enjoy the holidays the best that they can. So, because I think everyone needs a little bit of a break and just time to celebrate and be thankful. So that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anything, Jason? Okay, Jason's out. I will end this with saying I wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah and Happy New Year. I want to relay an email that I got just quickly. I got this back in November and a little farther than mid-November. And you might recall that we had many parents contacting us about having the hybrid model worked on and adjusted, and there were kids having a hard time. So I got this email and I asked the parent if I could read it to her, to the committee, and she said yes. So if you indulge me for a moment, I'll read that. It has been a few weeks since I shared my concerns, and I wanted to let you know that I am so impressed with how things have changed. I have never been more proud of the teachers and administration at Carver. I thought it was important that I follow it up to let you know that since working with the 5th grade teachers, administration, and special education teachers, my family has seen so much change in how the hybrid module is happening. I no longer have a child crying and is learning more independently. Still hoping he will be able to return full-time this year, but I understand why this is not happening now. So happy to see the hybrid schedule has been tweaked. I also wanted to share that after attending teacher conferences for my high schooler, I feel strongly that I hope we look closely at keeping the 4-class semester for high schoolers in continuing years after COVID is gone. I feel that the only 4 classes has made a huge improvement in my child's grades. Having fewer classes, she can concentrate on 4 subjects, which I feel is presenting in her grades. I do have nieces with AP classes that I will be curious about how they feel with the AP exam being in May and taking the classes first semester. I am not sure who made the change to the 4 class semesters and was unsure if the school committee voted on that. So I wanted to share something that I think should stay after COVID leaves. Thank you again, school committee and administration. I continue to listen to you guys and know that it is not easy to make your decisions. And that was from Miss Emily Slavin, who said I could mention her name. So I want to thank her for that, and I want to thank everyone in the administration for everything they've done for the community. We want to see everybody, all the kids back in school full time as soon as we can, but this is what we have right now, and I want to thank all of you for responding to the community the best you can. And if anybody else is having problems out there, like Mr. Neef said earlier, please contact them and they'll get you help. All right. So with that,
Andy, I can add on. Actually, I forgot about a couple important things. Food service, just a quick food service update.
Okay.
Our food service team has met with Shane Gives Thanks, and they're setting up a distribution over the holiday season. So we're going to work with them, and it's a win-win for both of us. So there's going to be more information sent out about that, but just want to let you guys know we're collaborating with them on getting meals to kind of families. We can only provide a meal from age 1 through 21, but again, that'll be a distribution site, and it will be open during school breaks, all that stuff. So that was kind of good news.
Terrific.
In addition to that, we are also kind of I don't say pushing, but we're having kids take meals out the door at the elementary school on all days. They're able to grab a sandwich as they go out to their car. So we've been trying to push that concept. And again, any meal that we can get helps the food service department, and it gets a meal home to the kids, which is a win-win as well. And then the third thing is Scott and I got an email today from the Carver Shaws, and Carver Shaws nominated us for the community for our work that we were doing when COVID first hit, and the to-go meals that we had. They actually nominated us through their own corporation. We were receiving $10,000 from them as a neighborhood. We're doing good in the neighborhood, I think, is what they call it. So I don't have a ton of info on it. I literally just talked to the Shaw supervisor for all of 2 minutes this afternoon. I'll get more info, but I'm thinking maybe we have them come in if we do have a live meeting in January. They would like to come present us a check. So Scott, you can hop in there.
So I don't know if maybe we should talk about that. Is they actually kind of suggest that they'd like to, because of, obviously they want to get some publicity for themselves, do an official presentation at a live meeting in January. So I don't know if the committee would be willing to meet in person one of the January meetings. You can think about that.
Well, I mean,
and, we can follow our process in the auditorium and still Zoom and do that whole thing, but we would be,
on the phone quickly. She said it doesn't have to be in a live meeting. We can go there and get it. I just think it's more personable if we kind of have it and they come to a meeting, it gets televised, all that stuff. So that's my thought.
Does anybody have a problem with doing a live meeting for this purpose? We'll have the issues with the Zoom with the microphone, but I mean, I wouldn't have any problem. Anybody else have an issue?
I've always been a fan of the live meetings. I wonder, I mean, we can talk offline, but I wonder if we all had our computer and we had the Zooms up, instead of having the microphones in the auditorium, if we use the microphones on our computer and the Zoom, if that would help with the sound, or I don't know.
Yeah, but what happens there is we all give feedback to each other.
Because the computers are too close together?
Yeah.
Even with the speakers
we have
off?
to really spread out in the auditorium. We can sit all over the auditorium.
Yeah.
Could we have it at town hall and just limit audience participation has to be remote?
We could try to do a live at town hall and say that it's remote participation.
I think that'd be good.
Could we even just do a special thing just for this? It doesn't have to be during the meeting.
Yeah, we could.
Just saying. I mean, even we could go to Shaw's and do it at Shaw. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
they were fine with that. I just thought we could do.
But if we do it as a group at some spot and not use it as part of the meeting time, it might have more of an impact.
And we could invite Kathy Gallerani. I'm sure Kathy will come, and if we were just gonna go, so we'll work on this. We'll talk.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, but I think we should do something live either way. Have them present the check. I mean, that's very nice of them. Were there any limits on how the money can be spent, Brad, or is it?
It was all geared towards our food service program. So I'm thinking we put in there, and honestly, food service could desperately lose the money use the money right now. So
that's great.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, those are good updates to come with. I appreciate that. Okay, well, does anybody else have anything else before we go?
Anyone else have money? Any good news about money? Anyone? Come on, guys.
That's excellent. Thank you. That's so great. Yep.
All right. Also, one more thing before we leave, before we take the vote to adjourn. I want to thank Area 58 for broadcasting this for us. I want to thank Catherine Gallerani from the Carver Reporter for covering this tonight. And I'd like to thank everybody else on our staff, Gina, Meredith, everybody, for attending and having only one meeting of fun this month. But anyway, okay, well, I'll take a motion now to adjourn if anybody wants to make one.
Okay, I will make a motion to adjourn, but I want to say one quick thing. I neglected to thank our students in our district for being so good and doing such a good job of following the rules and being respectful. And I know it's difficult. I know it's hard to not, gather with your friends and just be kids the way they're used to being kids. I think they're all just doing a great job. So I just neglected to say thank you to the students out there. Not that any of them are probably watching right now, but for the parents that are, or anyone else that may see this in the future, I do realize that our students are doing a really good job of following all the protocols. And it's appreciated. So that's it.
Agree.
And with that, I will make a motion to adjourn.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. We have a second? Okay,
Second.
Jason the second, and Jen seconds it. And okay, so we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Jen Pratt,
Jen Pratt, aye.
Jason Greenwood,
Jason Greenwood, aye.
Stephanie Clarity,
Stephanie Clarity, aye.
and Andy Cottarelli, aye. We are adjourned at 9:40, and we'll see you all in January, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a great holidays and Christmas, Hanukkah, and New Year's. Thank you.